All right, welcome to the conversation on TYT Network. We got a really interesting guest for you guys, Chris Hansen. He was, of course, the host of NBC's Dateline's To Catch a Predator, and he's now hosting a podcast called Predators I've Caught. He's also hosting Hansen versus Predator. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, let me ask a quick question about the podcast, and then, of course, I want to ask you about To Catch a Predator and all the things. And
sure.
Everybody who's watched it, which is pretty much everybody on the planet, certainly in America, at some point or another, has a series of questions, and I'm among them. So, how's the podcast different? What do you guys talk about the old cases? I assume you don't go into people's houses with an audio thing and go, "Oh yeah, I got you." No.
Exactly. We're back. The podcast is an opportunity for me to go back over some of these cases and get inside and relive them and take the listener behind the scenes of the show, and then to also find out, where is this guy today? What has he been up to? Has he stayed out of trouble? Has he gotten back into trouble? And it's been fascinating. It's really been reflective for me, especially as we go out and we start doing new predator investigations for television and for the YouTube channel. It's fascinating because so often it happens so quickly, and you're so in the moment that you don't have a chance to reflect. And this has given me the opportunity to do that. So it's been fascinating for me too.
Yeah. So I've always wondered about people's reactions, because you're catching super bad guys who are looking to have sex with underage kids, right? So I imagine that most people are cheering you on, right? But there's an element of such over-the-top public shaming that I wonder if you also had critics and how to break down. I know, of course, you don't know the percentages, but like, were the critics, a tiny amount, or was it a significant portion of folks who said the shaming is just too much?
I think it was a small percentage of people who saw the show. The reaction that I get is overwhelmingly positive. It was then, it is today, 17 years after we did the very first investigation. And I think people are genuinely behind it. And I think especially, Jack, when we talk about the pandemic and the fact that so many more kids have spent so much time online. And you look at a recent study by the Center for Missing and Exploited Children that suggests the number of predatory approaches of children, the number of cases in the US has gone up 99% at the peak of the pandemic. And you also have to think about this. When we started these investigations, we merely had decoys in chat rooms on AOL and Yahoo. Well, today, there's been an explosion of social media platforms on which a potential predator can reach out to a child.
Yeah. So of the people that you guys caught, the most common critique you guys would get, and the question you would get is it entrapment, right? And but I'm curious what your take on, of the people that you caught, do you think that almost all of them would have done it on a different day with someone real? Or do you think most of them would have, but maybe we got a couple that wouldn't have actually done it if this opportunity had not presented itself?
I think that you see some of the younger guys who had the opportunity to meet somebody online, who didn't have the guts to do it in person. I think some of these guys, without the internet, without the opportunity to chat with people, they wouldn't necessarily offend. But I think that would be the same whether it was a child online or whether it was one of our decoys or whether it was a law enforcement decoy. I'm comfortable, based upon what I've seen and the people to whom I've spoken, that these guys would have offended, and in most cases had offended prior to surfacing in our investigations. Yeah, I'm sure there were a couple guys who it was really the first time, but I doubt in very many it would be in the low single-digit percentages, I think.
Yeah, and God, getting a lot of these guys off the street, if not every single one of them, certainly the repeat offenders, getting them off the street is a giant public service. right? So,
well, you see some of these guys, we went back and took a look at a fellow, Michael Gentile, who is the topic of Predators I've Caught this very week, came out today. This guy showed up at a house to meet a 13-year-old girl. He was 64 years old. And during the investigation, the Fairfield, Connecticut police found a hotel key in his pocket and went to the hotel, which was nearby. He had a virtual child porn studio set up to which he wanted to take this child and create child porn, essentially. So, the damage that these guys did do before they were caught, is exponential.
So Chris, now we have an explosion of people who believe QAnon, and they believe that the Democratic leadership and Hollywood stars are leading child sex rings, etc. Now that's absurd, and they have absolutely no evidence of that. But one of the things that struck me was that people who had been abused before were more likely to be QAnon supporters, right? Because to them, it was within their experience. Oh, people in power abusing young kids. Yeah, well, sure, that happened to me. It might not have been a president, it might not have been Tom Hanks, which is of course absurd, right? But it was my uncle who had power over me, etc. So what I'm driving at is this a much, much bigger problem than we realize in America?
Well, I think it's a bigger problem than even we've found. And again, over these 17 or so years, we've exposed, more than 400 predators in all the different investigations combined in different formats. Law enforcement goes out every day. I was at CrimeCon a few weeks ago, and I presented with a law enforcement investigator who works in Ohio, and they go out, 3 or 4 times a year, and the numbers are staggering. And this is just in central Ohio. So you combine that with what's going on overseas. You combine that with, how many different social media platforms are out there right now, and the fact that we've been in a pandemic for more than a year. More kids are online more than ever before. More parents are engaged online, perhaps in the same residence, but focused on their own business. The opportunity is there, and whether it's interactive gaming or whether it's just a regular Kick or TikTok or anything like that, there's a great potential for the kids to be approached, and I think it's important that parents have this discussion at an early age with kids and make it age appropriate, of course, but start that discussion, because there isn't a way in society to really have an effective demand reduction. In the drug world, we have demand reduction, we have treatment, we have this philosophy that it's no longer a crime as much as it is a disease, addiction. And so we work it that way. But when you talk about a pedophile or a predator, it's not the most glamorous aspect of medicine. You have people who are very dedicated who do this work, who go into prisons and talk to offenders, but there's not nearly enough of it to reduce demand. So it becomes education, it becomes awareness, and it's necessary to have a dialogue, which is what I've always tried to do with any of these investigations.
And what's your sense, Chris? Do kids get molested more by folks they know? Or nowadays, because of the availability of the internet and all those different ways, people they don't know?
Historically, it's always been more by folks they know. Whether it's a relative, whether it's a friend of a relative, whether it's a person in power, a scout leader, a coach, that sort of thing. But because the stranger, the internet predator, has become so adept at grooming, the person who's a stranger, on a Wednesday may not be a stranger, by the time Friday rolls around. So you have this growing number, I think, of stranger predator activity. And it's much higher than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. But historically, yes, you're absolutely right. It's more of an issue between people who know each other.
Right, and ironically now, the probably the best known person accused of child molestation and running an actual child sex ring is Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison now, co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein. But did you ever catch a female predator?
Never in one of our investigations. One time we had a fellow say that he was going to bring his girlfriend with, and we think it was a ruse just to try to make the target feel more comfortable. But in none of our investigations over all these years have we seen a female predator. I know it's happened. I wrote a book on the topic, several years ago, and there was a case we profiled there. But the psychiatrists tell us that when it comes to the female predator, you're more likely to see the teacher-student scenario that we've seen, played out so many times, because female predators don't like the anonymity where male predators tend to thrive on it. And so you just don't see as many in this scenario, that we, investigate.
So Chris, thank you for joining us. Thank you for putting away a lot of bad guys.
Thanks, John.
I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured it out like earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you, or that you were
that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
All right, welcome to Dr. Rashad Richey, Indisputable. This is going to be quite interesting. I don't know if you can handle this much truth on any day of the week.
The unrest inside of the Black community and communities that support them. It's because these cops are not held accountable.
You have a family calling 911, and that family is expecting help, not expecting their loved one to be killed by the very people they pay to protect and serve them.
Did you ever notice a cop that you worked with call any black person the N-word or target people because they were black?
Nope.
But we disagree that somehow police officers are not also subject to the same systemic biases and racism as any other level of law enforcement.
It sounds like for everybody's need who wants to crucify the cops without looking at it.
No, crucify bad cops, brother.
Of
bad
course.
cops.
We don't need the government to step into our lives mandating that we should be wearing a mask.
You think you putting on a mask, Trey, is government intrusion, but you don't think the government telling a woman what she can or cannot do with her body it isn't government intrusion.
Where does life begin?
You want to go there?
I can read it to you, brother.
You seem very well prepared. Certainly more.
Of course,
prepared
why would I not be well
prepared?
They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform throughout this country, so I won't stop, and you won't stop either.
I've been a fan of TYT, I believe, for the last 6 years.
5 years.
3 years now. 7 years.
4 years now.
2.5 years. I just started because she got me into it.
My boyfriend actually watches it every morning and every night, so I kind of just started watching it with him, and I love it. I mean, it's the only way that I find my news.
Looking through YouTube, looking for political shows that look cool.
I came across a very angry rant from Cenk, and that's when I knew.
So I was immediately in love with the show.
And then I haven't missed a live show since then.
10 times a day, I watched the show in the morning.
Whenever I had a bad day at high school, Young Turks.
Man, Cenk is just so blunt and honest, and I love the honesty, and there's no BS behind the news, and they just tell everything like it is.
There's nobody censoring them. There's nobody there to say you can't do this, you can't say that.
That feel of authenticity makes it seem like what they're saying is true.
I feel like I get the real story from the Young Turks.
I am TYT.
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 Breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. This is Brett Ehrlich with Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. Bernie Sanders wants to break Wall Street, and he wants to break it real bad.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote. And in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy. All right, back on the conversation. Now we're going to talk about folks who've been released from prison because of COVID. Should they remain so? I think it's a really interesting topic in a couple of different ways. We're going to bring on Anthony Fisher here. He's from Insider and he wrote a column about this. Anthony, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Jake.
No problem. So Anthony, I do find this an interesting one. First of all, who did they let out of prison? That of course people are going to be concerned. Wait, is it murderers, rapists, etc.? Right? So who was it?
No, it was in fact the lowest possible security risks in the federal prison system. These are people in minimum security prisons, all of whom were nonviolent offenders, all of whom had spotless prison records. Otherwise, they wouldn't have qualified for home release. And so, just to clarify, when you say released from prison, they were released from prison, but they were released into home confinement where they are required to wear ankle bracelets basically all the time that are monitored by the government. But they are allowed to enroll in classes, they are allowed to get jobs, and many of them did. Many of them reconnected with their families, repaired relationships, became mentors in their communities and their church groups, got jobs, have resumed being the breadwinners of their households in certain situations. So these are definitely the people who restorative justice was working for. They were definitely not the murderers and the rapists.
Yeah. All right, so that's reassuring, obviously, to everybody. And I'm a lib, and I like that people are back in society in a productive way, and we're not over incarcerating. So those are all good things. But I'm gonna keep pressing on some of these things. So one of the concerns I had, Anthony, as I read your piece was, well, a lot of white collar criminals did nonviolent crimes. And so on the surface, the only ones we saw publicly were almost all rich people who were getting released from prison, right? Now, of course, that's a misleading way of looking at it, because famous people are being featured in the news as released from prison, and most poor and middle class folks aren't famous at all. Nobody's gonna do a news story about them being released, right? And so, but I do wonder, were there a lot of white collar criminals in this batch that got released?
Well, I actually don't have a survey because it was 27,000 people, and there are currently 4,000 people at risk of actually being sent back, which I'm sure we'll get to. But just in my very informal survey, working with Families Against Mandatory Minimum, and just the people that I reached out to myself, there was one white collar criminal among all the people I spoke to. Some of the people were recovering addicts who got caught up in drug conspiracy, which, as you know, can be, especially when it's a federal charge, can mean a lot of different things. It can be a trumped up charge. I'm not saying it was in this case, but just a long way of answering your very simple question is there was one banker who admitted to me some financial chicanery. Everybody else was involved in petty drug stuff, maybe a little bit of petty theft. But that was the only white collar criminal I came across.
That's interesting. Yeah, I read about that guy, and he now has a job at a company, which, man, people are wonderfully forgiving, and especially for the poor middle class folks, that's great because it gets them back on their feet, etc. But guy does fraud, and you put him in the company. I don't know. I'd be nervous.
Yeah.
But anyways, but he has a job, and a lot of them have jobs, and that's actually great that a lot of them have jobs. And so I'm going to ask one more, what appears to be like almost a conservative question, but I'm genuinely curious, and it's going to lead to something else too. I noticed one person in your story had been selling fentanyl, which actually is really dangerous, right? So like marijuana shouldn't be illegal to begin with, and now in a lot of states it isn't. Joe Biden said he was going to do get it off of Schedule 1. Of course, he didn't keep his promise, and we're going to get to him potentially not keeping a promise on this. But is that a problem when somebody was supposed to serve 15 years and they only served 3? I mean, is there any argument to be made there that that's a miscarriage of justice?
Well, again, it depends on what your sense of justice is. I'm on the criminal justice side of things, where criminal justice reform side of things, where I think that we overall incarcerate too many people and treat justice too punitively, whereas it's kind of revenge and punishment seem to be more a metric of how seriously you're taking the offense or how much you care about the victims. And there are some arguments to be made. John Path wrote a great book called Locked In, where he argued that to reduce mass incarceration, we actually are going to have to sentence the worst of the worst to more lenient sentences. Now that doesn't mean like 5 years for murder, but maybe it does mean some murderers will get out in their lifetime. So I don't know that I go that far, but I do think there is something to be said for particularly, like, say, for instance, if there's a 15-year sentence and most of those sentences are reduced to half with good behavior, so that drops it down to about 7.5 years. And if you're 3 years into it, you're coming up on the 50% threshold of where you could be initially eligible to be released from prison. And those are some of the metrics that the Bureau of Prisons already works with. In the case of the people who've been released from prison to home confinement right now, it's because of a memo that then Attorney General Bill Barr issued at the beginning of the pandemic that said we need to kind of thin out our federal prisons wherever possible. So these are the lowest risk people that qualify for home confinement, and that's how we got here. It's fairly remarkable. We can get to how it changed, but as Kevin Ring of Families Against Mandatory Minimums put it to me, these are the people who Donald Trump and Bill Barr thought could be let out of prison. So they, these are two, tough on crime types. And if these are the people that they thought, deserved a shot at home confinement, then there might be something to that.
Yeah, of course, Donald Trump's not at all tough on crime. If you're talking about white collar crime, he loves it. Can't do enough of it, and will pardon anyone who's done political or white collar crime. But yes, he's tougher on non-rich.
Rhetorically, he's tough on crime.
Right, and so we're gonna get to how Biden can fix this, because these folks could be going back to prison now if COVID's over. But one more thing. But because of COVID, we saw, for example, I'm a progressive, so we say, oh, we got to get free vaccines for people. Great, wonderful, I love it, right? And then people started wondering, and even some conservatives started wondering, why are we giving away free vaccines? Then what we should do, like free healthcare for everybody? And of course, us progressives were like, yes, that's what we've been saying the whole time. That's what every other country does, right? And this is a similar situation. Wait a minute, if we let these folks out that were supposed to serve much longer sentences, and it turns out they were really low risk and they become productive members of society, isn't the real issue how ridiculously harsh our sentencing was in the first place?
Yeah, and I would completely concur with that sentence. That we've only just begun recognizing the damage of mass incarceration, even though we've been now talking about it for years. We, about halfway through Obama's time in the White House, it became a real serious issue around 2014 from Ferguson. But we haven't done much about it. I mean, the First Step Act, which was signed by then President Trump, is a drop in the bucket. It is a good first step. Trump's DOJ actually did a lot of stuff to undermine the implementation of the policy after it was signed into law. But we haven't done a great deal to reduce mass incarceration because we haven't radically changed our mandatory minimum policies, both at the state and federal level. We still treat crime as something that can be solved through punishment. We don't think at all about, that people who've committed crimes shouldn't be branded as criminals and stigmatized as criminals for the rest of their lives once they've paid their debt to society, that they should be able to have a second chance at life. Till we have that kind of attitude for the people that, so some of the easier cases might be the people we're discussing now who are on home confinement, but some of the less sympathetic cases, that they might have the ability to have a second chance at life is something that we really need to embrace if we're going to talk seriously about criminal justice reform and sentencing reform.
But when you look at the numbers, their recidivism rate is so much lower. So the people are not going back to prison because they're not going back to crime, which, facts matter. And so it turns out our whole like, oh, we will punish them and then we will get more justice. No, it turns out we get less justice.
Prison damages people, like if you get locked up for the first time, the chances that you're going to be in better shape to resume your life as a productive member of society afterwards are smaller. Prison makes people addicts. Prison, just out of survival, people are, among other criminal elements and start, new criminal businesses while they're in prison. It's not a great place to sit in your room and think about what you did and how you'll improve your life afterwards. It becomes, kind of an animal kingdom to survive, and it changes people for the worse. So we should be locking people up for not as long as periods of time, and we should be thinking that every crime doesn't need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law or the fullest, the most harsh sentence available, just to prove that we're taking crime seriously or that we're respecting victims. It's kind of a society-wide thing across the board. Like I actually, not to use the word, but I had written a column last summer where I basically said you could have criminal justice reform or you could have cancel culture. If you have a zero tolerance look at the world, if you have a zero tolerance view of people and that mistakes must be punished or you're not taking the issue seriously, then you're not going to have criminal justice reform. They're divergent paths.
Anthony Fisher doing a great job of pointing out the facts in this situation from the insider. Anthony, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Jack. Have a good night.
You too.
Welcome everyone, you're watching The Young Turks. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian. For the second hour of the program, John Iadarola, host of The Damage Report, will be joining me to help talk about some of the stories we have prepared, including how our waterways have now been contaminated with substances like methamphetamine, trace amounts of course, and they're having an impact on trout. What kind of impact is that? Are they addicted to drugs? That is a literal study that we're gonna give you the details of. Just an interesting story outside of the realm of politics. But of course, in the first hour today, lots of political news to get to. The hysteria among the right wing regarding critical race theory continues to the point where it seems very clear that they're willing to use it and the fear mongering associated with it to do away with whatever we have left in terms of our privacy. So they're calling for more surveillance to police critical race theory, which is insane. We're also going to take a look at what's currently going down with the mayoral race in Buffalo, New York. Yes, it's a local race, but it's an important one because it really does highlight the divide between corporate Democrats and Democratic socialists like India Walton, who won that Democratic primary fair and square. And then later in this hour, I want to talk a little bit about Bitcoin mining, private equity firms investing in it, and essentially privatizing gains, socializing losses. There's one community in New York that deserves a little attention when it comes to this issue. But before we get to all of that, I do want to encourage you guys to like and share the stream if you're watching online. It's one of the best ways to help support the show. And you know what? I'm gonna do a shameless thing right now. It's my birthday. Help me celebrate it by liking and sharing the stream. Let's get some eyeballs on it. It does help with the algorithm. So get the progressive message out there, folks. I'd really appreciate that. All right, without further ado, let's get to our first story.
We are going on to the general election as a candidate for mayor, and what people have been saying is write down Byron Brown.
That shameful display was the incumbent mayor of Buffalo, Byron Brown, who lost the Democratic primary for the mayoral race in Buffalo, New York. India Walton, a self-described Democratic socialist, did in fact win the primary because she's a great candidate, of course, but also because of the fact that Byron Brown just did not take her challenge seriously and didn't even agree to do a single debate with with Walton. Now, with that said, what we're seeing from Byron Brown right now is really just this shocking Trumpian display of refusing to take the loss and rally behind the Democratic candidate that he lost to. So let's hear a little more of what Byron Brown has to say. He's encouraging folks to write in his name in the general election. We're already seeing some division among Democrats in Buffalo over this very issue. But just listen to the type of fear mongering and language he uses to talk about Walton.
You know, we know the difference between socialism and democracy. We are going to fight for democracy in the city of Buffalo. The voters have said that they don't want an unqualified, inexperienced, radical socialist trying to learn on the job on the backs of the residents of this community. We will not let it happen.
No, actually, the voters already communicated what they wanted. And they decided to go against you and vote in favor of Walton, who, again, let me just repeat myself, won that Democratic primary in the mayoral race for Buffalo, New York, fair and square. I mean, Byron Brown certainly didn't take her seriously, certainly didn't campaign heavily against her. He totally underestimated her. And she is a Democratic socialist. To use the type of framing and rhetoric that you would hear from someone like Donald Trump or Tucker Carlson in regard to radical socialists is just shameful and honestly incredibly pathetic. We're talking about a candidate who had the backing of the Working Families Party, of the Democratic Socialists of America, of grassroots organizers. She's funded by small dollar donors, whereas Byron Brown is very different situation. In fact, the Buffalo News reports that the incumbent mayor, Byron Brown, stated the next portion of his campaign with the promise of an all-star team that will knock on every door in the city, raise enough money to compete, and even engage in debates he refused during the primary. No, come on. Look, the primary is where it matters the most for all intents and purposes, right? That's where we get to choose a candidate who represents the best interests of the left. And in this case, Walton certainly does that. That's why she won the election. But to now go to the general election and encourage people to write in Byron Brown's name, what does that do? That splits the vote, of course. And whatever happened to democratic unity? Anytime you have a leftist candidate who so far is criticizes, just gently criticizes the Democratic establishment or corporate Democrats, what do we hear? Oh, we need unity, we need unity. But now we're dealing with an incumbent mayor who can't accept the fact that he wasn't popular enough among voters in a heavily Democratic part of New York. And so he can't accept the fact that he lost and is now fear-mongering about the winner and also encouraging a strategy that could split the vote and even pave the way for a Republican candidate to win. I mean, it's just stupid and shameful. I do want to also talk a little bit about how India Walton responded to it, of course, but the differences between the two candidates, because that's obviously incredibly important for anyone in Buffalo who might be watching this, who might wonder, okay, well, I want to take part in that general election, who do I vote for? I'll give you the details. First, let's hear from India Walton, who says, quote, "We urge Brown to accept the will of the voters, end this futile campaign, and help us work toward a seamless transition. It would be a shame for Brown to ruin his legacy by partnering with right-wing real estate developers in this pointless effort. The people of Buffalo deserve so much better than this." The fact of the matter is Byron Brown does have an incredibly cozy relationship with real estate developers. I mean, as a Californian, I know firsthand what it's like to have a mayor who has cozy relationships with real estate developers. It's pretty awful. It's certainly contributed considerably to our homeless crisis here in Los Angeles. But with that said, the real estate developers and the relationship that Byron Brown has with them is very relevant to this. So Brown's campaign has given financial aid at least $30,000 in the closing couple of weeks. That's when the panic struck in, right? That's when everyone realized, oh wait, this guy hasn't really been campaigning. He's gonna lose. We need to give him some money. From out of area wealthy and connected political benefactors, including those with business interests before the city for his losing primary run. Now let's take a look at Walton. How was her campaign funded? What kind of relationships does she have as a democratic socialist? He left that word out of his description of her. Just referred to her as like some dangerous radical socialist. No, she wants to actually do what's right by her constituents and represent their best interests as opposed to real estate developers, and her campaign contributions certainly bear that out. So when Brown announced that he would challenge her as a write-in candidate, Walton said she raised $40,000 in 24 hours from 600 supporters. So some of those include some heftier contributions, but the majority of her funding has come from small dollar donations. Much of Walton's primary money came in organically, in the words of one campaign source, as word spread on social media and through outreach by the New York chapter of the Working Families Party, which helped run the Walton campaign using its experience in such things as primary day get out the vote efforts. You look at her funding, it does come from small dollar donors. You have this very organic grassroots effort to get her in that mayoral seat, to win that office. And what's also really impressive, guys, if you want to see what effective electoral strategy looks like, take a look at the state of New York, because for all the criticism that DSA gets, and even I've criticized them in the past over, honestly, things that aren't even that important. When it comes to their organizing on the ground, when it comes to their electoral strategy, they have shown that they have a strategy that works. Knocking on doors, speaking to people who feel disaffected, who don't think that their vote even matters, right? Knocking on doors and encouraging people to be part of the electoral process, but more importantly, offering something to the voters of Buffalo, New York, that they haven't really been offered by Democratic politicians in a long time. I mean, it's the first time since the 1960s that you have a socialist candidate who is very likely to win the general election in this mayoral race in Buffalo, New York. And so she's talking about housing. She's talking about creating a more equitable system, not just racially, which of course she talks about, but economically speaking, and not doing favors for real estate developers and corporate interests from out of state. I love it. And by the way, Byron Brown also alleges that she wants to defund the police. And she came out and she's like, I didn't say I want to defund the police. We actually have a heavily funded police force in Buffalo, New York. And we all know about that. We've seen some of the horrendous footage of police officers from Buffalo, New York, brutalizing elderly people as they're protesting. What she's trying to do is reform the system so everyone in that community, whether they're black or white, whether they're poor or rich, actually get protected and served by the police in Buffalo, New York. There's a very big difference between that and just blindly supporting Buffalo police, regardless of what they do or regardless of how brutal they are. So these small victories matter, and it's important to shame the hell out of incumbent Mayor Byron Brown and the stunt that he's pulling right now, because it's Trumpian, it's pathetic, it's embarrassing. And it does go against the will of the people in Buffalo, New York, the voters who turned up to support India Walton in this race. All right, well, let's move on to some other news because leaked audio seems to be the name of the game lately, and I'm here for it. I love it. And the latest example features a GOP lawmaker.
I mean, honestly, right now, for the next 18 months, our job is to do everything we can to slow all of that down to get to December of 2022, and then get in here and lead.
That's right, chaos and obstruction is the name of the game for Republican members of Congress. What you heard right there was Republican Congressman Chip Roy, who very loudly declared that the strategy among GOP lawmakers is to essentially create chaos and obstruct until the midterm elections. And then at that point, they'll be in charge and they get to do whatever they need to do. Now, the context of this discussion was in regard to the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And it's important to know how Republican lawmakers are talking about this issue and compare it to the nonsense framing we get from corporate Democrats who pretend like they really care about bipartisanship, when in reality, they're just using that as cover for the fact that they want to do right by their corporate donors. Now, Chip Roy is very clear. He has no interest in working with Democrats. He certainly has no interest in supporting a bipartisan infrastructure bill if Democrats, progressives specifically, do indeed plan on fighting for a reconciliation bill that will pass in tandem. And so just to give you more details about this event, this is the Patriot Voices event that Chip Roy was speaking at, and Undercurrent, where Lauren Windsor does wonderful reporting, obtained this video. So the next clip that you're about to watch features a question about the infrastructure bill, and pay close attention to how Chip Roy answers it.
You had mentioned infrastructure, and I was just, this whole brouhaha over the weekend with Biden saying that they were going to ram through all this all these liberal wish list things. Why are y'all going to vote for that? Are you going to vote for the one bill if they're going to put all this other stuff in a bill that they just ram through without any bipartisan?
Well, I don't vote for anything in the House of Representatives right now. I mean, not flippantly, but there's literally just nothing to.
But I mean, I know it's the Senate, but
the Senate. So what? Right? The Senate was allegedly working to cut a deal. The people who are working to cut the deal, by the way, were not your conservative warriors in the Senate. And so they're cutting a deal. But then Biden, who came out and said we got a deal, allowed Pelosi basically to kind of step in and go, oh, no, you don't. You're only going to get that deal if you have reconciliation with all this liberal garbage. And then Biden said, oh, okay, yeah. And then kind of backed away from the deal. Then he kind of came back away from the veto threat. So nobody knows what anybody's going to do right now. That's the thing. This is the problem. I actually say, thank you, Lord, 18 more months of chaos and the inability to get stuff done. That's what we want.
So the person you hear toward the end is Rick Santorum, former Republican senator, who says, I agree. No, we love obstruction. We love chaos. Which, by the way, I mean, they're just saying out loud what we already knew. anyone who's paying close attention to the Republican Party and the way they operate under a Democratic administration knows that their whole strategy is to obstruct. What's frustrating is there are good faith Democrats who think that maybe there's a path forward in doing this in a bipartisan way with the addition of a reconciliation package, right? That would pass in tandem, would be signed in tandem with Joe Biden. And just for those who are wondering, okay, what's the difference? Bipartisan bill would pass with 60 votes in the Senate. You would need Republicans, of course, to vote in favor of that, which means the bipartisan version strips out everything that matters. And the reconciliation bill would be a second bill. I mean, this is such an insane strategy to begin with, but it would be a second bill that would have all the goodies that we actually do need, right? All of the human infrastructure components, like funding for elder care, funding for child care, or an extension, a permanent extension of the child care tax credits that Biden had implemented as part of his coronavirus relief package, which is really helping families out right now. So all of the good stuff would be passed through a reconciliation process in the Senate that would not require 60 votes. It would only require a simple majority. And of course, since there's 50 Democrats in the Senate, Kamala Harris, the vice president, could come in and break that tie to get the reconciliation bill passed in addition to this bipartisan bill. Now, going back to the good faith actors, there are some progressives like, actually, I can't name them. I don't know. But I've seen this effort to apply pressure on Biden to ensure that he does demand that both bills pass in tandem. I just don't believe that he's actually gonna do it. I don't know why we're going with this strategy, especially when you consider the fact that Republicans have no interest in playing along. They don't wanna work with you. You go to the Senate, right? Chip Roy is in the House. You go to the Senate, and what Chip Roy said goes along with what Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has said multiple times during the Biden administration. He has no interest in helping Biden pass his agenda. In fact, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell vowed Tuesday that Republicans would fight. They would fight attempts by Democrats to pass a jobs and families plan along party lines. Democrats are aiming to pass the package before the Senate leaves in early August. So let's get to the bad faith actors, right? So let's get to the mansions, the cinemas, the members of Congress, the Democratic members of Congress who are heavily funded by corporate interests, who pretend like they are working with Democrats and Republicans because they care about bipartisanship. In reality, as we know through leaked audio of Joe Manchin during a meeting with billionaire donors, he knows that bipartisanship isn't a reality, but he needs to use that talking point to essentially help defeat popular provisions in Joe Biden's infrastructure bill that his donors don't like. That's what this is really about. So we need to be clear about what the actual intentions are of these corporate Democrats. But we also have to be clear about the reality of the Republican Party overall. They're not interested in playing along. They're not interested in bipartisanship. So who cares about passing a bipartisanship infrastructure bill when it's crap? When it allows for $100 billion in what's referred to as asset recycling. Fancy way of saying privatizing our public infrastructure, $100 billion worth. That's what's in the bipartisan bill. It's garbage. So I think Democrats would be far better off in passing Biden's original infrastructure bill through reconciliation, throw away these fantasies about bipartisanship because it doesn't exist, and create a situation in which the midterms aren't a done deal in favor of the Republican Party. Pass legislation that improves people's lives. That way, in campaigning, Democrats can maybe campaign on something other than, oh, the other party's really icky, you don't want to vote for them. No, you can actually campaign on passing legislation that improves infrastructure, of course, but also improves people's lives materially. I know I say this all the time, I repeat myself, but it's just such a layup. Oh, well, what's gonna happen with the Senate parliamentarian? What if she says that you can't pass this infrastructure bill under reconciliation, a simple majority in the Senate? Who cares? Overrule her. That's what the Biden administration can do. Overrule her. You can do that. there really are no excuses. Really, when you boil it down, the only thing standing in the way of passing a robust infrastructure bill is corporate donors. It's the US Chamber of Commerce. It's the billionaire donors that Senator Manchin was talking to in that, what he thought, private Zoom meeting. It's amazing to me because Democrats have an opportunity here to actually do something that would be wildly popular. I mean, polling certainly indicates that upwards of 70% of Americans support the initial iteration of Biden's infrastructure bill. So get it done. Get it done. Encourage people to support the Democratic Party by actually improving their lives. And who knows, maybe that'll actually encourage them to go vote for members of Congress, Democratic members of Congress. I mean, it's amazing, like this defeatist attitude of, oh, we're likely to lose control in the midterms. That's what always happens. Well, maybe that's what always happens because you guys don't do anything. You keep capitulating to the Republican Party, which has nothing to offer voters. They don't have anything to offer their own voters other than fear-mongering about critical race theory. I mean, that's what we've been hearing about for weeks on end. Because they don't care about the economic anxiety of Americans. They don't care about the crumbling infrastructure unless they can sell it off and privatize it to corporations. I mean, progressives need to band together and they need to be very clear with voters about what's actually going on. And I really think that there's an easy path to victory for the Democratic Party. They're just unwilling to go through with it. All right, well, we gotta take a break. When we come back, more chaos. We're gonna talk about Bitcoin mining and how it's just creating a terrible environmental situation for communities throughout the country, particularly in one town in New York. Come right back. Hey everyone, welcome to our first social break. For tonight's bonus episode, we have a fun surprise for you all, so tune in. I mean, I'm hosting the bonus episode, so I don't know what the fun surprise is, but it'll be great. Go to tyt.com/join to become a member, or if you're watching us on YouTube, just click that join button and you get all sorts of perks, including our bonus episode, other members only exclusive programming, and you help support this show. You keep us going and I love it. Thank you so much. Also coming up on Twitch after our bonus episode tonight at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, we have, is this updated? Oh my God, it's Wednesday, duh. Yeah, happy half hour with Brett Ehrlich, it's Wednesday. So make sure you guys check that out at twitch.tv/TYT. All right, I got a lot of super chats, so I'm gonna try to get through as many of them as I can. Jules Genesis says Byron Brown is 100% corporate and cozy with the developers and police union, so much so that you see him make excuses for abusive cops over and over. By Byron. Yes, and I also wanna give Benjamin Dixon, a friend of the show, a lot of credit for drawing attention to this. He did some great reporting on it on his YouTube channel, so definitely check that out. But yeah, we certainly need to call out corporate Democrats when on one hand they're preaching about unity, on the other hand, when there's an election result they don't like, I mean, they'll even sacrifice a Democrat winning and paving a way for a Republican to win just because they get so salty about it, losing. I mean, that's what we're seeing with Byron Brown. For Bezala says, I'm starting the hashtag Baby Brown and tweeting at him, and he's acting like a child. I'm not having this. Ariel writes in and says, Anna's just nonchalantly killing the solo hour hosting on this birthday broadcast. Thank you so much. I hope I'm killing it. Ford Perfect 294 says, happy birthday, Anna. As for yesterday's bonus episode, I can't imagine your experience with it. Virtual hug, be well. Thank you, I appreciate that. About to sleep with Z's included says, happy birthday, Anna. Don't stop fighting for us. Left is best. I will not. Jeffrey Horton says, happy birthday, Anna. Can you say, smash the like button and smash the subscribe button? Yes, definitely. Like, people love to say that. People are saying they like to smash the share button and the like button. All right, and Wendy S says, happy birthday, Anna. Standing in solidarity with you and TYT always. Thanks for all your hard work. Thank you. Absolutely love you guys. I really, really appreciate it. Stylish in our members section says, here's my bipartisan proposal. Shred the garbage modified by Republicans, beef up the actual bill, and that can be passed through reconciliation. I mean, we're speaking the same language. I totally agree with you. Like, the fact that the Biden administration has wasted so much time with all this bipartisan nonsense is just pathetic. And also apply pressure to Manchin. I mean, he's easy to pressure. I mean, we've seen that. He freaks out whenever he's held accountable. So use the sticks, Biden, use the sticks. Let's go back to the show. Welcome back to TYT. Please like and share the stream and help get the progressive message out there. With that said, let's get to our next story.
On the shores of Seneca Lake, a retired power plant has reawakened, now pumping out 500 million pounds of CO2 a year. Not because this community needs electricity. Its main purpose, powering thousands of computers 24/7, mining Bitcoin.
The Seneca Lake community in upstate New York is suffering the consequences of a private equity firm buying up a decommissioned power plant, converting it to using natural gas solely. Almost solely, actually, for the purpose of mining Bitcoin. And when I say they're suffering the consequences, what I'm specifically referring to is how this Bitcoin mining is impacting the local environment, particularly Seneca Lake, which is a lake that the community enjoys, usually during hot seasons like summertime. People in the community go there, they enjoy themselves. But the situation has gotten so bad that the water in the lake, as is described by some of the community members, is as hot as entering a jacuzzi. Now, some of you might be wondering, how does that work? How does mining for Bitcoin destroy the environment? Well, it certainly does emit CO2, and also the lake itself is being utilized for Bitcoin mining. And this next video gives you a good explanation of how that all works.
A private equity firm bought the dormant coal plant in 2014, converting it to natural gas, installing nearly 10,000 computers, and growing. Bitcoin is all digital. There's no bank, no government printing money. Instead, high-powered computers solve complex puzzles to verify Bitcoin transactions. When they do, they also earn Bitcoins. That's called Bitcoin mining. And it devours huge amounts of electricity, more than entire countries like Argentina and Sweden.
We do not need to pollute this lake for Bitcoins. We don't all need Bitcoin.
An intake pipe 2 football fields long cools the 70-year-old turbines with about 100 million gallons of water a day drawn from the lake. The superheated water is discharged into a river, raising fears about the fragile trout and harmful algae blooms.
I mean, who cares about the ecosystem? Who cares about the trout and the algae blooms? Algae blooms, that sounds like something that the community can pay for later on if it causes any problems. We got to privatize gains, socialize losses, and this whole Bitcoin mining operation in upstate New York has led to protests in the community, understandably so. Because again, this power plant that was previously decommissioned wasn't bought by the private equity firm in order to provide electricity or power to the community or to do anything wonderful for the community. It's all about helping to invest, or it's all about investing in this decommissioned power plant in order to mine Bitcoin, which doesn't help the community, it helps the private investors in Bitcoin, right? So this is an ongoing problem, to be quite honest with you, not just in New York, but we're seeing this type of behavior across the country, specifically with private equity firms relying on fossil fuels in order to do this mining. So I want to give you some more details about the private equity firm and also give you other examples of how this is impacting communities across the country. So the facility on the shores of Seneca Lake is owned by the private equity firm Atlas Holdings and operated by Greenwich Generation LLC. They have increased the electrical power output at the gas-fired plant in the past year. Last week, Greenwich announced a new Bitcoin mining operation at a retired printing plant Atlas owns in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And they've got their eyes open. They're like, okay, great, where else can we do this? Because it's obviously highly profitable for them. They don't care about the impact on the local communities, whether it's environmental or otherwise. But residents, of course, aren't happy about this. Going back to the Seneca Lake community that we're talking about here, one resident by the name of Abi told CNBC that the lake is so warm, you feel like you're in a hot tub. And on June 5th, the residents staged a protest as a result of this power plant at a nearby Department of Environmental Conservation office in Avon. The regulators don't rein in the Greenwich plant. They say 30 other power plants in New York could be converted to Bitcoin mining, imperiling the state's emission reduction goals. And it seems like there's very little regulation around this. I mean, wow, what a shocker. It's what you can expect. But like other corporations, this private equity firm is using donations, giving out donations in order to garner some support in the community. For instance, not everyone wants this operation gone. The Dresden Fire Department welcomed the company's $25,000 donation for a Jaws of Life machine, and the school district was grateful for a $20,000 gift to develop education and enrichment programs. So I mean, that strategy is actually incredibly smart. I mean, when you really think about it, you have local communities that are defunding certain things that are incredibly necessary, whether it be funding for the fire department, funding for the public schools in the area. You have a private equity firm come in, they're like, we don't want a lot of backlash over what we're doing and destroying this community and destroying the local environment and the environment generally speaking, right? They're contributing to climate change through this Bitcoin mining. So instead of maybe reconsidering what they're investing in, private equity firms are like, I don't know, we'll just buy these people off. I mean, they're desperate for money. Their local politicians don't do right by them. So $25,000 here, $20,000 there. We'll garner some support and keep doing what we're doing. Who cares? Jacuzzi lakes, let's destroy the local trout, algae blooms, who cares? Bitcoin mining is where it's at. We gotta make money. Private investors, they love Bitcoin, it's the future. Let's give you more. The environmental consequences are horrific. So an estimate from the University of Cambridge says global Bitcoin miners use more energy in a year than Chile. That's a country. When the energy comes from fossil fuels, the process can add significantly to carbon emissions. The Greenwich plant houses at least 8,000 computers and is looking to install more, meaning it will have to burn even more natural gas to produce more energy. So this is, I mean, it keeps getting worse. And by the way, this particular power plant, they want it to produce 26 times as many Bitcoin, or mine 26 times as many Bitcoin compared to what other power plants are currently generating right now or mining right now. And here are some other examples of what we're seeing across the country. As CNBC reports, in 2016, the private equity firm ArcLight Capital Partners of Boston bought into Limetree Bay, an oil refinery and storage facility in, I want to say, St. Croix in the US Virgin Islands. The operation had gone bankrupt after a series of toxic spills, but it reopened in February. Just 3 months later, it was shuttered after it unleashed petroleum rain on nearby neighborhoods. Oopsie doopsie. We got to mine for Bitcoin though. I mean, I wonder who paid for that, by the way. Did they pay for that, or did the community pay the consequences of that? These private equity firms also invest a large amount of money into fossil fuel companies rather than renewable energy, right? And the numbers bear that out. For instance, in the past 10 years, private equity firms have poured almost $2 trillion into energy investments, according to Preqin, a private equity database. About $1.2 trillion has gone into conventional energy investments, such as refineries, pipelines, and fossil fuel plants, compared to just $732 billion in renewables like solar and wind power. And investor criticism prompts some public companies to dump fossil fuel assets, but then private equity firms are ready buyers. So while we see the gains made by on-the-ground activism and organizing regarding banks pulling their investments out of fossil fuel companies, private equity firms are like, yo, we're looking for some short-term investments. We're looking for an opportunity to make money. We don't care about morals, we don't care about ethics, please, we don't care. This is an easy way to make money. We don't care about the environment. We're gonna privatize the gains, socialize the losses. The community's sick of it, they're protesting it, but this story doesn't get much attention. We've heard a little bit here and there about Bitcoin mining and how damaging it is to the environment, but you don't hear these personal stories. You don't hear these local stories. You don't hear about what local communities are going through in regard to a change in their environment, a change in even the temperature of the lakes that they enjoy. It's just pathetic. And the worst part about all of this, other than of course the contribution to climate change and making this planet impossible to live on eventually, is the fact that these private equity firms take out debt to do these investments. And a lot of these private equity firms are tied to pensions. So if one of these investments goes south, who cares about the pensions? I mean, they're certainly gonna suffer the consequences of that as well. That's a whole different angle that I do wanna cover on this story in more detail at a later date. But we need to have a real discussion about what's happening with Bitcoin mining, because it is contributing to climate change. It seems to be completely unchecked. Private equity firms are doing more than just buying up single family homes and pricing Americans out of the market. I mean, they're also destroying local communities and their environment through the behavior that they're engaging in. But they don't care. There's very little regulation around this, and it's gonna continue happening unless we have progressive politicians paying close attention, because we already know that corporate politicians, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, just kind of look the other way as this stuff happens. So solidarity with the community of the Seneca Lake community in upstate New York. They're going through this, but they're not the only ones. This is a very real issue that does need to be addressed, and unfortunately it's just not getting a lot of attention. Ridiculous YouTube beefs apparently drive up the views, but share this video. Show that you care about what's happening with American corporations, their greed, their unwillingness to police themselves. They'll never police themselves. You need politicians to regulate, and you need real investments in renewable energy. Otherwise, they're just gonna run rampant and do whatever they want. That's what we're seeing right now, and it's just absolutely sad and pathetic. All right, we gotta take another break. When we come back, we gotta do a little bit of a deep dive into Tucker Carlson's fear mongering about critical race theory, because he is reminding me of rhetoric that I heard to the lead up of the Patriot Act getting signed by the Bush administration. So let me make the case for that when we come back from the break. everyone, welcome back to our social break. Moving over to our members section. Recovering Pagan says, the plant was defunct, right? If this firm had any kind of long-term in mind, they don't. That's not what private equity firms do. They would use the site to instead develop solar, wind, or hydropower, whichever is most feasible, and use the energy to mine their Bitcoin. I mean, I certainly agree with you, but private equity firms don't operate that way. They look for short-term investments, and they usually, I mean, in this case, they probably plan on selling off the Bitcoin mining operation to someone else. We'll see how it plays out. But Millennial Hero has some thoughts about Bitcoin because he or she is a huge fan. Bitcoin is the currency of the people, but I do not support this private equity firm for their atrocious mining methods. There are green solutions to mining Bitcoin. Listen, I can't really comfortably weigh in on whether Bitcoin is good or bad, to be honest with you. It's something that I've been really trying to wrap my head around. And thank you to everyone who's reached out to kind of help me understand it. But every time like I try to dig in, it's just, anyway, it's hard to understand. Let me just put it that way. And I don't want to ever give you guys misinformation, which is why I haven't like weighed in strongly on whether cryptocurrency is good or bad. I do know that like these bad cryptocurrencies, the S-coins, I can't use the bad word. There are some issues there, right? And I'm worried about people investing their money into something that could make them broke eventually. But again, I don't know enough, so I'm not gonna chime in too much. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, says, Republicans have no platform. At least they're honest. They offer nothing. They come at us from the front as they're stabbing us to death. Democrats proclaim they want policies when they really don't. They sneak up behind us to stab us in the back. That's the frustrating thing, but I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that the Democratic Party uses certain talking points to provide cover for the fact that they're really just trying to carry out whatever their corporate donors want, right? But they know that bipartisanship isn't a reality. I mean, you have Republicans screaming from the rooftops about how they want to defeat anything from the Biden agenda. They're not hiding it, they're clear about it. And you're right, I mean, I guess they deserve some respect for being open and honest about it. I mean, Chip Roy didn't know that video would be leaked, but Mitch McConnell's like, yeah, I don't, my only goal is to defeat the Biden agenda. That's all he says. He says it openly all the time. Moving on to our super chats. Actually, let me go to our Twitch subs. Mr. Unknown, 10 months Prime. I subbed for Anna's birthday. Thank you so much. Moose Soup, 11 months tier 1. Happy birthday, Salt Queen. F all the haters. Keep on being the strong woman you are. My daughter thinks you're a badass. Thank you, thank you. We gotta get back to the show, guys, but I'll read more of these Twitch comments in our next social break. If you've been paying any attention to the incessant fear-mongering on the right regarding critical race theory, it'll probably remind you of some of the rhetoric that we heard in the lead up to the Patriot Act. So 9/11 happens, obviously there's a lot of fear in the country, and what do the neocons do? Well, they use it as an opportunity to essentially get Americans to agree to just signing away their privacy rights, their civil liberties. And now we're hearing very similar rhetoric from the likes of Tucker Carlson. So let's talk about that. Tucker Carlson is proposing more surveillance in the classroom. You know, the guy that was just recently complaining about the NSA allegedly spying on him, he wants more surveillance, not for him, but he wants it in the classroom. And it's all because he is fear-mongering every day about critical race theory, something that kids don't even learn about in grade school. It's largely a graduate level curriculum. But Republicans don't want you to know that because squirrel, you gotta pay attention to a non-problem because conservatives have nothing to offer us. So let's hear a little bit of what Tucker Carlson has to say about surveillance in the classroom.
It's civilization-ending poison, but it's everywhere. How widespread is it? Well, we can't really be sure until we finally get cameras in the classroom as we put them on the chests of police officers, until we finally get a civilian review board in every town in America to oversee the people teaching your children, forming their minds. And let's hope we get both of those very soon. But until we do, we can't know exactly how widespread this is, but there are indications. We know that these ideas, this poison, has made it all the way to expensive private schools in central Ohio.
Private schools in central Ohio. So private schools get to do what private schools get to do. They get to teach whatever curriculum they want. They could be a religious curriculum. Private schools are notorious for not having to follow any of the local guidelines or regulations pertaining to schools that are public, right? Public schools are regulated by local communities, by the state. They get funding sometimes federally, but most of it is regulated on a state level. Also, Tucker Carlson says no one can know. I mean, we need to surveil these teachers. No one can know what they're teaching your kids. I don't know, Tucker, you don't ever meet with your teachers? You never have a conversation, any PTA meetings? Because I remember my mom would talk to my teachers all the time. How's my daughter doing? What is she learning about? You know, I mean, where are the fathers, Tucker? Where are the fathers? But the fact of the matter is, critical race theory is not an issue in grade schools. It's just not. For the most part, critical race theory is taught on a college level, a graduate level, but they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that because you gotta be scared, everyone. If you're a white Fox News viewer, you're very likely to believe that critical race theory is something that it's not. That the whole point of critical race theory is to automatically assume that all white people in America are racist and just inherently bad. That's the way they talk about critical race theory. Of course, that's not what the curriculum actually is. But let's just go back to what Tucker Carlson is proposing here. He's proposing surveillance in classrooms to make sure we hold these dangerous, very dangerous public school teachers accountable. You know, they're very bad, you know? They make like $40,000 a year, living large, you know? Oftentimes they have to spend their own hard-earned money to buy supplies for their students. They get abused through this rhetoric by the right wing nonstop, not just on this issue, but every issue. But no, we gotta surveil those dangerous teachers because they might be teaching something that they don't typically teach in grade school. And I'm too lazy to have a conversation with my children's teachers about what they're actually teaching my kids. And it's just hilarious to hear Tucker Carlson make these arguments when just the other week, he was making up crazy conspiracy theories about being spied on by the NSA. Let's watch.
Yesterday, we heard from a whistleblower within the US government who reached out to warn us that the NSA, the National Security Agency, is monitoring our electronic communications and is planning to leak them in an attempt to take the show off the air. Now, that's a shocking claim, and ordinarily we'd be skeptical of it. It's illegal for the NSA to spy on American citizens. It's a crime. It's not a third world country. Things like that should not happen in America.
So let's surveil powerless public school teachers. But the NSA is spying on me. We can't have that. We can't have that. Let me also just remind you all that Tucker Carlson was not friendly toward Edward Snowden when that massive story broke back when Glenn Greenwald used to be a journalist about the NSA indiscriminately spying on Americans. In fact, Tucker Carlson was critical of the Obama administration for not going after Edward Snowden as a person who had committed treason. During one speech, Obama had referred to Edward Snowden as a hacker, and Carlson felt that he was really minimizing the crime committed by Edward Snowden. Very bad man, treason. You know, whenever it comes to surveilling powerful people, whether it be Tucker Carlson or Dianne Feinstein, they're outraged. They don't want to be surveilled. But Tucker Carlson's calling for surveilling teachers because his cutesy little grift, his little culture war talking points, call for it. Just go ahead and scare the American people about teachers. Encourage the surveillance of teachers for something that they're not even really teaching students. It's just so pathetic. It's so sad. And of course, look, when you look at states like Florida, where they just signed an anti-critical race theory bill, it's not just about critical race theory. It goes further than that. It's all about indoctrinating students with the garbage that the GOP wants to indoctrinate kids with. Let's give you an example. Here's Ron DeSantis from Florida.
The bill also expands our previous efforts in civics to add a requirement for the high school government class that students receive instruction on the evils of communism and totalitarian ideologies. We have a number of people in Florida, particularly southern Florida, who've escaped totalitarian regimes, who've escaped communist dictatorships to be able to come to America. We want all students to understand the difference. Why would somebody flee across shark-infested waters, say leaving from Cuba to come to southern Florida? Why would somebody leave a place like Vietnam? Why would people leave these countries and risk their life to be able to come here? It's important that students understand that. Now, as part of this bill, Florida will create a Portraits in Patriotism library so students can learn about real patriots who came to this country after seeing the horrors of these communist regimes.
I mean, if capitalism is so great, why did we need the US government to orchestrate coups in countries that had democratically elected socialist leaders? I mean, if socialism is so awful, why did we have to go in and destabilize Latin American countries by installing our own puppets in those countries? I mean, it's fascinating, right? Because I don't know, if I was a true believer in like the wonders of capitalism and I knew that socialism was bound to fail in these countries, I would just leave it alone, right? It's bound to fail. Why does the US government need to get involved to overthrow democratically elected leftist leaders? I don't know, just a point. But the reason why I show you that clip, other than the fact that it's related to the same narrative that we're hearing from Tucker Carlson, is the fact that this is all meant to install the types of talking points, right-wing talking points, indoctrinate students with fantasies about US history and fantasies about economic systems, things that they agree with, not things that are accurate, nothing based on evidence or historical context. They want to indoctrinate. They don't like any curriculum that makes them uncomfortable. And even if that uncomfortable curriculum isn't even being taught in grade schools, they're gonna pretend like it is because they have nothing to offer conservative voters. It's just the same fear-mongering, culture war nonsense. And then you have that added layer of the rhetoric meant to manufacture consent, to give away your civil liberties, to call for more surveillance. Surveillance of powerless people. We're talking about teachers, public school teachers, people who are underpaid, underappreciated, constantly attacked. Let's go ahead and surveil them. That's what Tucker Carlson wants. What a great populist. What a great populist, really a man of the people, isn't he? All these pathetic clowns running around pretending as if Tucker Carlson is like some wonderful socialist. Are you blind? What's wrong with you? Tucker Carlson is the same old Tucker Carlson, the same Tucker Carlson who was a cheerleader for everything we stood against during the Bush administration. Just because he's paying lip service to the economic anxieties that some people are experiencing in this country, most people are experiencing in this country, doesn't mean he's actually gonna do the right things to respond to it. I mean, homeboy is the heir of like a Swanson fortune, makes millions of dollars as a cable news host, created like his own perfect little bubble studio in Maine while the rest of the country was struggling with coronavirus, and also told people not to get vaccinated because it's dangerous. I mean, he's just loathsome. Tucker Carlson is loathsome. And if you're unable to see that he has nothing to offer And that he's the same person that he was back in the Bush administration. And if you're gonna buy this garbage about how he's, some populist who's actually looking out for the little guy, I mean, wake up, come on. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing when you see people who think they're leftists supporting the garbage coming from that show. Because there's nothing there, it's empty. All you need to do is just scratch the surface a little bit, and Tucker Carlson is the same garbage that we've known from years and years and years back. Tucker's gonna Tucker. Don't buy into hollow talking points and nonsense just because he invites you on his show. He's not looking out for the little guy, he's looking out for himself. And what he called for there in surveilling teachers while crying about allegedly being surveilled by the NSA, pathetic, pathetic. Anyone who buys that crap really needs to get their head checked. Let's take a break. When we come back, John Iadarola will be joining us for some lighter stories. We will be talking about methamphetamine addicted trout. It is a story, it is a study, you don't want to miss it. Come right back.
I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in there.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, I don't know, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years, believing that it was actual berries. Yeah, she's like, these aren't real berries at all. Yeah. I'm like, I got news for you, Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really, the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you gotta force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
What Donald Trump has done as president has cut taxes for the wealthy and made life better for rich people. But he's made life worse for poor people.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
The opportunity to make money off of tragedy is the American way.
There's only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea of what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign.
ShopTYT.com now has books. One of them is Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People. That's a saying that AOC said, they've got money, we've got people. It's the best tracing of the AOC victory I have seen anywhere. It's the most accurate, and it's got great details. The book actually goes all the way back to Jesse Jackson and how he's the original Bernie Sanders. If you wanna know how we're gonna win going forward, those lessons are super important, and they're in Ryan's book. So check it out right now at ShopTYT.com. We found the perfect person to lead the army.
Allison Horks.
The establishment media works hand in glove with our corporate legislators, and our corporate legislators work hand in glove with the corporation. And we're going to make it so that it's a decentralized force throughout the country, so that we can quickly identify stories, quickly identify troll farms, and go in and neutralize the enemy, and then start building responsible media throughout the country and on every platform available.
Welcome back to TYT. Anna Kasparian and John Iadarola with you. How you doing?
It's weird. It's your birthday, but I'm getting the present of doing the show with you.
Get out of here.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. It's been a normal day, very normal day.
Are you at all worried about when you hit 25, the quarter life crisis? Are you worried about that?
Yeah. I was like, man, I'm 25 now. Before I know it, I'll be in my 30s.
Exactly, and it's rough. Let me just tell you that.
Look, I'm 35 today. I wear it loud. I wear it proud. I hope I don't wear it too loud, but I'm cool with my age. I'm happy with my age. I thought I would be decisive about having a family by now. Still not decisive about it, which is probably not good news, but it's okay. Other than that, I'm feeling good.
You don't have to be. You've got your health.
I do. I'm very happy. Husband is taking me out for my favorite dinner tonight.
Ooh, what's that?
I'm like afraid to say it because
sure. Which general term?
Michael Napin is one of my favorite TYT viewers. I love him. He's a wonderful vegan.
Yeah.
But I love sushi so much. He's gonna take me out to sushi tonight. So don't
Michael
be
Napin
mad
or
at
your
me.
husband?
No. My husband is.
Man, your husband's so cool. That's a birthday present.
But I will say, I have learned to make quite the tofu dinner lately. No, I make good tofu. I do. Tofu's as good as you make it. Like you can flavor it however you want. Get out of here. All right.
Yeah.
Let's get to the news.
Can you churro it up? Maybe it'd be good then.
Cover it with salt and cinnamon.
This needs cinnamon, sugar, and to be fried.
You might be able to do that. Who
Maybe.
knows? I've never tried it. But anyway, all right. Well, why don't we get to the rest of our rundown? Because unfortunately, Marjorie Taylor Greene is making headlines again. Weeks after Marjorie Taylor Greene toured the Holocaust Museum and apologized for comparing mask mandates to the Nazi Holocaust, she's decided to go back to saying incredibly offensive and stupid things again. This time, it's in regard to Joe Biden's efforts to encourage people to get vaccinated. Because as we know, if you don't have a vaccinated population, the coronavirus will mutate. You'll have variants like the Delta variant, which kind of, or yes, is that already a thing? Has that already happened?
Yeah.
Great, awesome. So he's kind of hit this plateau in the number of Americans willing to get vaccinated. So he has now kind of launched this new campaign to encourage vaccinations. Faced with a steep decline in vaccination rates, President Biden announced that his administration would send people door to door, set up clinics at workplaces, and urge employers to offer paid time off, I like that, as part of a renewed push to reach tens of millions of unvaccinated Americans.
God.
So, yeah, go ahead.
It's so hard to get people to take necessary free medicine.
I know. One of our viewers, Ryan, made a really great point about all of these incentives that are being provided to people to get vaccinated. And so he's, I believe, a Canadian. And he says, look, the reason why all of these cutesy little incentives are getting under your skin is because of what it communicates to the rest of the world, places where they don't have access to the vaccine. And it's like, we'll take it. If you guys don't want it, we'll take it.
Yeah. No, like think about we covered the Australian lockdown on TDR today. Imagine being in Australia where they've been like super serious and responsible for the most part.
and they're super locked down right now. They're really scared about a breakout of the Delta variant, and they're at 9% vaccinated. Because of course it's very difficult to get the doses when the bigger, richer countries buy them all up. And like we just have mountains of it that we're like, please somebody take this shot. And everybody's like, I watched Fox News and so no, sir, I will not.
Well, let's take a look at what American entitlement looks like on the right wing, because it's not just about entitlement, it's also a mix of stupidity and entitlement. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, a member of Congress, tweeted this: Biden pushing a vaccine that is not FDA approved shows COVID is a political tool used to control people. People have a choice. They don't need your medical brown shirts showing up at their door ordering vaccinations. You can't force people to be part of the human experiment, except no one's being forced to do anything.
Wait, you mean that she was wrong?
I mean,
she's gonna be devastated to find this out.
Do we really need to go into brown shirts? I think most people know. But just in case, let's talk about why comparing this effort to brown shirts, the vaccination effort to brown shirts, is ridiculous and reverses any apology that Marjorie Taylor Greene had previously in regard to comparing mask mandates to the Holocaust. So the term brown shirts refers to the paramilitary group that helped facilitate Hitler's rise to power in the 1930s and 1940s. The group bears no resemblance to Biden's plan for targeted outreach to unvaccinated communities in the face of rising concern about the Delta variant. Greene, by the way, also accused Biden of pushing a vaccine that is not FDA approved. All 3 vaccines in the United States have emergency use authorization from the US Food and Drug Administration and have proven to be safe and effective in clinical trials.
Yeah, so what she's doing there, and what they all do, because they all say it's not FDA approved, is they take the emergency sped up authorization that they simultaneously want you to give Trump credit for. This is a product of Operation Warp Speed, faster FDA authorization. It's not the normal process, but it has been checked out, it is authorized. So yes, Trump, great for doing that, but that's also incredibly suspicious, so I would never take it ever. That's what they want, that's the magic trick that she's doing right there.
If the vaccine received every authorization, every confirmation of safety, it doesn't matter.
She doesn't care.
She doesn't care because unfortunately, something as serious as the pandemic has also become part of the culture war narrative. Like everything has turned into a culture war for the GOP. Because like masks didn't need to be a political issue.
Just political, that's all it is.
It's become nothing more than a political issue. It's incredibly frustrating. Now, I wanna go back to Greene's previous apology for doing what she just did in regard to this vaccine effort. So here's her apology after she had toured the Holocaust Museum.
The Holocaust there's nothing comparable to it. It happened and over 6 million Jewish people were murdered. More than that, there were not just Jewish people, Black people, Christians, all kinds of people, children. There is no I just want to say there is no comparison to the Holocaust, and there never should be, and that's what I'm sorry for.
So she was previously sorry, but then she decided to do the exact same thing again.
There was no comparison except the one that I've already made and the one I'll make in 2 weeks.
I'm sorry, I just, I couldn't think of any other toxic thing to compare, coronavirus efforts to, so I just went with Hitler. And I'm gonna do it again.
So Francesca raised a great point on the Damage Report. Do you think that she learned about the brown shirts on that trip to the Holocaust Museum?
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
100%.
So she went there not to evolve and learn about the error of her ways, but to get new material to troll us all.
I see new talking points. I'm very happy. I toured the Holocaust Museum. She's just the worst. She's the worst.
It's not brown shirts. It's volunteers offering medicine that you don't have to take. And that's not what the brown shirts did. I looked it up.
So the Biden administration has kind of responded to what Marjorie Taylor Greene has said there. And I haven't seen this video yet. I've read about it, so maybe I'll change my mind after I watch it. But sometimes I feel like Jen Psaki gets way too much credit for doing the bare minimum. Anyway, so let's watch. Here's her response to it.
What does her statement really say to you?
Well, first I will tell you, we don't take any of our health and medical advice from Marjorie Taylor Greene, so I can assure everyone of that. But also, John, what we're trying to do here as the federal government is protect the American people and save lives, prevent people from getting COVID and the coronavirus. And what we've seen over the course of the last several months is that one of the biggest barriers is access, and people knowing when they can get the vaccine, where they can get the vaccine, the efficacy and safety of the vaccine. It's up to every individual to decide whether they're going to get vaccinated. But especially as we're seeing reports from the CDC about the rise of the Delta variant, one of the most transmissible variants we've seen there, this is about protecting people and saving lives.
That was good.
That's fine.
Psaki bomb. I know.
God.
No, that was fine. That was good. That was a strong response.
Yes.
And yeah, no one should be getting medical advice from Marjorie Taylor Greene or the Republican Party, considering the way that they've behaved throughout this entire pandemic, which undoubtedly has led to, hundreds of thousands of Americans dying that did not need to die.
Yeah. And tomorrow there'll be more, in a month there'll be more. And it'll be more and more disproportionately conservatives that will be dying as a result of it. And we live in a sick system where godless lefties like us are begging conservatives to not die, and they're giving us the middle finger because they love the people that tell them to get sick, get their family sick, and then die of a terrible illness. Can I bring up a random thing? It was actually mentioned on Twitch as well, but I swear I was gonna bring it up anyway. So she's like the worst, right? She's about as terrible as a person is in politics right now. So it's randomly, I don't want her to be the only villain. So her like being as bad as she can be is like calling these volunteers brown shirts. Remember when Chuck Todd called Bernie Sanders supporters online digital brown shirts? Chuck Todd was as bad as Marjorie Greene. And he barely got in trouble for that. For the comparison that she will rightfully be criticized by, possibly by Chuck Todd.
No, I mean,
why didn't he get in trouble?
It's such a great point. He didn't get in trouble because, no, it's a great point, and we should talk about it. Let's unpack. You ready to unpack?
I'm ready.
All right. Because Chuck Todd was going after a progressive. He was going after a Democratic socialist in Congress who was running for president. And so when these incredibly vicious talking points are used toward someone on the actual left, unacceptable. When it comes to, by the way, like in this case, Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing everything wrong, right? And the reason why she's getting criticism is because the words coming out of her mouth and everything she stands for actually is harmful to people. Both deserve backlash. Both deserve pushback for those kinds of talking points, right? But I think what gets legacy media outlets even more fired up is Marjorie Taylor Greene is going against a beloved corporate Democrat like Joe Biden, right? She's speaking out against him. Now, again, she's wrong, but he's protected, whereas someone like Bernie Sanders and his base, his base of support is not protected.
Yeah, like there was no claims like Chuck Todd is being anti-Semitic by minimizing the experience of Jews during the Holocaust because he doesn't like tweets he sees sometimes. That's madness. It is when she does it, and it is when Chuck Todd does as well. But he's fine. I honestly don't remember him getting in trouble at all.
No, he didn't get. I mean, we got mad at him.
Yeah, what does that count for?
You know, we were mad.
Oh no!
Yeah, I know. Totally, but
he hid for months.
That is a really good, like it's a good case to juxtapose to how the media is responding to Marjorie Taylor Greene. She deserves it. Chuck Todd deserved it as well.
To be fair, let's cancel them both.
Totally, I'm in favor of that. Love it.
Yeah.
All right, before we get to our next story though, I just want to give Obi Mom Kenobi a lot of love. She just gifted 50 subs in our Twitch community. 50? 50. Yeah.
Damn.
Not police. Subs. Okay, gifted subs.
Good.
I love it. So thank you, Obi Mom. That's wonderful. We're so appreciative of you and the Twitch community. Everyone, if you haven't checked out our Twitch community, you can do so by going to twitch.tv/TYT. All right, why don't we move on to our next story? Oh, wonderful. Riot panel. So, Sweaty Donald Trump stooge Kevin McCarthy initially rejected the idea of appointing members to a commission meant to investigate what transpired in our nation's capital on January 6th. That's when Trump supporters, rioters stormed the Capitol and caused all sorts of damage, harmed Capitol Police, and of course tried to, in their minds, overturn the results of our democratic process to ensure that Donald Trump continues to be the president of the United States. They failed, luckily, but the House of Representatives voted to, obviously try to pass some sort of commission to investigate what transpired. It was blocked by the Senate, and so Nancy Pelosi decided, all right, then I'm going to go ahead and create a group of people, a committee basically, to do the investigation without the support of Republicans. But I want it to be a bipartisan effort, so I will appoint people to this group. Kevin McCarthy, as the House Minority Leader, can appoint people if he wants. And Nancy Pelosi even went so far as to choosing a Republican, Liz Cheney, to serve in this committee. Now, McCarthy at first seemed like he wasn't interested in playing along at all. Now he's changed his mind. McCarthy indeed plans to place Republicans on the high-profile panel and is in the process of making his selections. So why this sudden change of heart? Well, you might find some hints in this next video. Let's watch.
What brought about this change in McCarthy's thinking?
Well, initially there was a debate inside the House GOP about whether to just boycott this panel altogether as a way to sort of paint it as partisan. But once Speaker Nancy Pelosi appointed Liz Cheney to her side of the committee, which will ensure that Democrats have bipartisan buy-in for their investigative work, it became clear that the boycott strategy was no longer a viable option for the GOP. So instead, I'm told Kevin McCarthy is indeed planning on appointing Republicans to the select committee. And the thinking there is that Republicans want an opportunity to try to shape a counter narrative, play defense for Donald Trump, and essentially try to throw some sand in the gears of the investigation as much as possible.
So, John, you brought up an interesting point while that video was playing regarding some of Kevin McCarthy's threats to Republican lawmakers if they tried to serve on this committee. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I vaguely remembered, wait, didn't he tell them that if they went onto the committee, that he would strip them of their committee assignments, which is literally about as bad a thing as he can do.
Right.
It's what Marjorie Greene got. And I looked it up, yeah, it was 6 days ago. It wasn't even a full week ago. And now he's like, I was joshing. You can go on there or whatever.
It's amazing.
To do, and why would, like, this does make sense. Yeah, you wanna have a few people on there so they can ruin stuff. Like that's like the video that you showed before, to create chaos and waste time and all that. Maybe not too much time, because you don't wanna drag this right into the midterms, but you definitely wanna make it as non-functional as possible. The cost to that, though, is that your strategy kind of sucked. You could have had an actual bipartisan committee, evenly split, that you would have had much more capacity to just derail everything, just 50-50 vote, you can't get anything done. Now it's still gonna be seen and presented as bipartisan, except they're not gonna have an equal share. Just strategically, it seems stupid.
They're not. This whole committee thing is already turning out to be a little bit of a joke. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I'm kind of mentally checked out until the final thing comes out, and I'm not expecting much.
Well, let's talk a little bit about who McCarthy is thinking about choosing for the committee, because there was a lot of fear regarding McCarthy, picking some crazy people, like maybe Representative Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene, to kind of derail this whole process. But the GOP, for better or worse, is a little more strategic than that. And so he's been advised to have some practical picks to kind of give this facade of credibility or legitimacy to the committee, while also being able to steer it in the direction that the Republican Party wants. Because what they're concerned about is Democrats using this investigation as a way of, maintaining power in the midterm elections. Democrats would have to be smart and strategic and do a little more than just that, like maybe offer something that improves people's lives in addition to this committee, like that would be better. But they usually don't go in that direction. Most of their campaigning is, they're bad, we're good, vote for us. It doesn't really encourage a lot of people to show up to vote, to be honest. I think disaffected voters want something substantive. Anyway, that's beside the point though. And so here's what we know based on reporting from CNN. The thinking among Republicans is that the purge will enable them to shape a counter narrative to a probe that could ensnare other members of their party. Some GOP sources even think it would be a smart move for McCarthy to select one member who voted to certify the election results in order to help inoculate against
a wild card.
Some of the criticism from Democrats. That is especially true after Nancy Pelosi chose Representative Liz Cheney as one of her 8 selections for the congressional probe.
That's amazing. It's like, wait a second, I have an idea. You should choose one person who respected the will of the voters. And McCarthy's like, well, I hadn't even considered that.
Totally.
I just assumed all of them would be people that tried to overthrow democracy.
But not because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But just to ward off any talking point or criticism from the Democratic Party, which is hilarious.
Does that? Does it do that? All the ones who voted against it still voted against it. It doesn't change that.
So McCarthy is likely to steer clear of choosing the most controversial firebrands in the party, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz, who would be harder for the Republican leader to control and could undermine the GOP's strategy on this. And so let's put up this fun little graphic, shows you some of the individuals that McCarthy is thinking about. You got Jim Jordan, Elise Stefanik, Johnson, Banks.
Yeah, I don't know them either.
Yeah, a bunch of people I'm not.
Yeah. Rutherford seems like a good guy. Anyway, so like these are supposed to be less wild cards, and I guess in some ways they are. But Stefanik, who back in the day criticized Trump, she is a 100% loyalist toady. That's all she is now. And fully accepts the big lie and all that. So she's functionally identical to Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Greene. Jim Jordan might be worse in some ways. His whole thing is to take the jacket off, just every day jacket off, and then go in there and ruin committee proceedings. That's all he's done for years. He used to have his old thing where like he covered up for sexual abusers and all that. But now his thing is wrecking committee proceedings. I didn't like either edition of him.
Yeah, that's exactly
That's not
right.
better than Matt Gaetz.
Also,
arguably his sexual crimes are worse than Matt Gaetz.
Yes, yeah, covering up the molestation and sexual misconduct by coaches.
Allegedly. If you trust the multiple victims of all those things he ignored. Yeah.
I'm inclined to believe the multiple victims
Me too.
have come forward.
I
Yes.
thought that was clear, but yes.
No, but it's crazy.
The whole thing is just so stupid.
The whole thing is stupid.
And I guess to some extent, I don't know if I'm reading you right, I feel like they're kind of succeeding with an assist from Nancy Pelosi, who I think fundamentally is an unserious person in a lot of different ways. I have like no expectations anymore. I really don't. I think they are going to successfully ruin it quite a bit. I think that Pelosi's more likely to come out with some, BS additional security that really doesn't have to do with the actual new threat and all that. Our initial concern when they were talking about the committee. So no, like there are lingering concerns. The deactivation of the panic button, the possibility that members of Congress were giving tours and all of that. I haven't heard anything about that in 6 months. Don't expect that I will in the next 6.
Exactly. Also, like literal insurrectionists and white supremacists within the ranks of the Capitol Police and the military. Yeah. I mean, if this were shaping up to be a legitimate investigation, or look, obviously I'm speculating that it's shaping up to not be a serious effort to investigate what happened. But if it were, it would look into those issues. And right now, to be completely honest with you guys, it appears to be nothing more than a political ploy by both parties. I think that this is an effort to help keep control of Congress by the Democratic Party, and Republicans are terrified of that. So McCarthy is now playing ball because he wants to have some say. He wants to have some influence on how this whole process goes down. At the end of the day, it's not actually about investigating what happened in the nation's capital. And I think that's why so many Americans are checked out of this at this point. And it's frustrating. It really is, because while you might see some federal indictments when it comes to some of these individuals who did storm the Capitol that day, it's not just about what happened in the nation's capital that day. It's not just about the people who were there that day. It's about the underlying issues that led to it and what we can do to maybe mitigate it in the future, maybe address it before it happens again in the future. And it's really a sad state of affairs when our elected leaders have no interest in that. Seems like they have no interest in that, and have more interest in using this as a political tool for campaigning. It's pathetic. I've used that word a lot today, but it is.
And for years. Justifiably.
How else can you describe the state of affairs?
No, I'm a shell of a man because none of this is real or worth, this is all stupid, clearly. And the final thing I would say is one thing that obviously is not going to be a part of this is going forward, the most substantive part is the use of the big lie, not just to instigate the Capitol attack, but to pass all of this anti-voting rights legislation. And to try to take over boards of elections, secretaries of state, and things like that with Trump loyalists who are going to do everything they can to nullify the results of elections. That is a million times more dangerous than the insurrection, but that's not going to be addressed by this investigation. It could be addressed and dealt with the voting rights bill federally, but they've given up on that. I don't even hear anything about that anymore. I'm sure at some point we will.
Oh yeah, the For the People Act, what happened to that?
I don't know, just not so much from the people anymore. But yeah, that would do something. But then what is the commission going to investigate? Why Kyrsten Sinema sucks so much? It's pretty easy to solve, actually. You got a couple of people who absolutely suck, and because of them, our democracy is probably gone.
Let's take a break, let's recalibrate, and when we come back, we'll talk about how Trump was really considering pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. Great, but QAnon doesn't seem to care about that.
No.
But we'll talk about it. We do care about it, and other revelations from these upcoming books, which should have probably been talked about when Trump was actually in office, but that's another story, I guess. But anyway, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll do that and more. Fire round. I'm gonna start with super chats. All right. Leith Marrow writes in and says, happy birthday, Anna. Your strength of character, intelligence, and integrity are inspiring. Thank you so much. Richard Rowe for Congress says, John, with the Brett Easter eggs, hashtag fan service. Don't know what that means, it sounds fun.
What's the Brett Easter eggs? I don't know.
I don't know
wanna
either.
know though, let us know, tweet me.
British 32, hi Anna, enjoying your solo TYT show tonight in the UK. By the way, regarding the $100 billion public asset sell-off to private companies, it would result in the same way the electric company in California that you and Cenk mentioned yesterday. Happy birthday. It's like, by the way, you know how they're gonna privatize your infrastructure? It's gonna be as awful as the very thing you guys were complaining about yesterday with utility companies. I totally agree with you, and we need to fight that, which is why the bipartisan Senate infrastructure bill's garbage and should be defeated. They need to pass the robust version of infrastructure or Biden's infrastructure bill through reconciliation. I mean, that's the only real way to do it, but anyway.
Yeah, and just to be clear, just because we like it doesn't mean we like everything in the bill. We just think there is a lot of good stuff that would come about as a result of it.
Totally, yeah, no, I don't like the bipartisan version of the bill. I don't think it's worth it. I actually think it's gonna end up putting the financial burden on
Oh, I take that as a given. I mean that if we get that, and even if the reconciliation one does pass, it is not all going to be awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that too.
Like people are gonna take us out of context and blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
Well, I mean, it's just another day, right? Raja Harris writes in and says, hey, hey B-Day Boo Anna. Hey John Forearms John, I love you both. Question, are the patches iron on the bomber jacket or for the bomber jacket?
I don't know a bomber jacket. I don't have a bomber jacket. Do you have a bomber jacket?
I'm just gonna say yes. I don't know, but I'm gonna say yes. Bomber jackets are pretty cool. I don't have one right now, but I think Shop TYT might have like some pretty cool bomber jackets.
Maybe that's what they're referencing.
Probably. Mandy says, thank you TYT for always keeping it real. Happy birthday, Anna. Thank you. I aspire to be a woman such as yourself. You always shine. Oh, you're the best.
Always.
Where is that one? All right, Kyle Craven says, grifters on Twitter told me that TYT sold out and turned into MSNBC, but the lead story was about a socialist winning an election. I'd bet Bezos' net worth that MSNBC won't cover that. Thank you. I hope our work speaks for itself. I'll just leave it there. We have Undecided who says, happy birthday to my fellow July Cancer. Anna, may your only pain be champagne. Also, I enjoyed your breakdown of Ice Cube's. It was a good day. That was a while ago. I suggest Foreign Exchange's Happiness for your playlist. I'll definitely check that out. All right, we've got 19 seconds left. Maybe I can read one more. Demetrius Johnson says, happy birthday, Anna. Sending love from Virginia. And you know what? I'm gonna read more comments when we come back for the show. I'll see you guys there. Welcome back to TYT, Anna and John with you. Just want to say thank you to our new YouTube members. We have Vasily Cool, CB Winsenreed, Amber M, Willow's Wonder, Wayne Bratcher, and Lindsay Robb. Thank you so much for becoming new YouTube members. I hope you guys enjoy the bonus episode that follows the main show today. Apparently there's some sort of surprise, and John keeps giving me like this weird smile every time I mention it. So you know something I don't know.
I don't know anything.
You know something. But you know what? John knows something else. One of our viewers asked about the new bomber jackets at Shop TYT. You have the goods, you know the deets. Let them know.
Yeah, so I've been trying really fast to find out the deets on Slack, and Brett has taken this opportunity to mostly troll me rather than answering my questions about the bomber jacket. He's like, thanks for watching. I'm like, well, clearly I didn't see it, so maybe fill me in. I'm trying to do this live. But anyway, so it was for a Members Appreciation Week. Apparently there are separate patches that people can pick and choose which ones they want to put on. So yes.
Love it.
Yes, and that was Nick thankfully filled me in on that because Brett was mostly wasting my time. So thank you.
Are those the Brett Easter eggs that people were talking about earlier?
I don't know, but if they were, I'd smash them.
Smash them. Just like you should smash the like button.
Yes, thank you, Nick. By the way,
yes, thank you, Nick. Nick's awesome. All right, and I also want to, because I promised, mention some other comments from our Twitch community, which you can check out at twitch.tv/TYT. Oh my God. Obi Mom gave 1,000 bits in addition to the 50 gifted subs. What? Which is bananas. That's bananas. Thank you, Obi Mom. We love you.
She's the best.
PH Diva, 6 months prime, wishing one of my favorite, most we can say badass, right?
Yeah.
Badass hosts Anna a happy birthday. Thank you so much. Whiskey Eyes, 11 months prime. Happy birthday, Anna. Thank you. Black Mange, 5 months prime. This sub is in honor of my late brother, DJ. He loved TYT, and y'all honor him with your insightful reporting. Keep up the good work. That means a lot to me. Really nice. So thank you for that comment, and thank you for subbing. I also wanted to just quickly read a member comment that meant the world to me, because this is the reason why I love doing what we do. Someone wrote in to talk about the Bitcoin mining story that we did earlier. I'm not seeing it right now. Maybe we can put it back in. But someone talked about living in the Seneca Lake community in upstate New York and not even knowing about the decommissioned power plant that was bought by a private equity firm to do Bitcoin mining.
Sure.
And it's just destroying the environment, including the lake. The lake has gotten incredibly hot as a result of it. We don't know what's happening to the fish and the algae blooms.
I feel bad for them and for your mentions later, because you said bad things about Bitcoin.
No.
So you're done for.
Hold on. I think that there could be a way of mining Bitcoin using renewable energy that's fine.
That is true.
That's all I'm talking about. By the way,
that would be great.
Elon Musk said bad things about Bitcoin's impact on the environment.
But he's a cool billionaire.
Go after Elon Musk. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. It's my birthday. All right. Let's go to our next story. A new book releases some more details of Donald Trump's unhinged administration, particularly when it comes to what he was planning to do with Ghislaine Maxwell, or at least an idea he had floated about Ghislaine Maxwell, someone who helped lure in sometimes underage women to be sexually abused. It's such a disgusting story. So Michael Wolff is writing or releasing another book about the Trump administration. He's the same author behind Fire and Fury, and in his new book, titled Landslide, he talks about how Trump was literally considering pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. Trump wondered if she was going to talk, apparently. Has she said anything about me? Is she going to talk? Will she roll on anybody? So he was considering pardoning her to prevent her from speaking about anything that could incriminate him in any way.
Yeah, it's what the founders wanted. Okay, if your whole movement is predicated on believing that there is a shadowy influence network of political elites who use their influence to protect sexual predators, you shouldn't raise up as your God Emperor a guy who wants to use his political power to protect a sexual predator from any consequences. And if he's going to do it, almost any random reason that a monkey at a typewriter could come up with would be better than, did she say anything about me? Is she gonna roll? Because that's worse. Because now I'm wondering what he did. It would be one thing if he was just protecting his buddies, or he for some reason liked her because they used to party or whatever. And I'm not even saying that he did anything that she would know about. I don't know. People flippantly say that they're sure about that stuff. I don't know.
No, we don't know. Yeah.
But he's acting as if he did. Why would you say that if you had never done anything? Like, for instance, I'm not worried about Ghislaine Maxwell incriminating me because I've never been within 1,000 miles of her. I don't know her. But he is way more worried, possibly for a reason.
It is fascinating because one thing that you might see online from my detractors, people who want to smear me in any way, is a picture that I was asked to take with someone I interviewed at the Munich Security Conference a few years ago. I interviewed Madeleine Albright, whose political views and foreign policy I certainly did not agree with. And for the interview, they asked me to take a picture with her, took a picture, and that picture has been used against me by bad faith actors incessantly, incessantly.
It's like the one time I shook Saddam Hussein's hand. People have been using that against me for a long time.
What's fascinating though is those very people who claim to be like these, I don't know, fighters for US imperialism or whatever, and all that's bad in the world, never make a point about this photo, which features Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Melania Trump, and of course, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And just taking a photo.
That doesn't bother me so much because at least, look, if you're gonna be single issue, if you think the only thing in politics that matters is stopping imperialism, then okay, you're gonna be focused on that.
Yeah.
But if you think that the only thing that matters is stopping the global cable of pedophiles, then you have to care about this one. This is the thing, this is the most important part. This is a layup.
Totally, I totally agree with you. So Trump had previously tried to downplay his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein in the wake of his arrest. But then last summer, I'm sure you guys can recall that he had acknowledged Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest and then wished her something. What was that again? Remind me.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and a lot of people want to know if she's going to turn in powerful people. And I know you've talked in the past about Prince Andrew, and you've criticized Bill Clinton's behavior. I'm wondering, do you feel that she's going to turn in powerful men? How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well. Whatever it is.
Yes, they lived in.
I wish her well. I wish her well. She's being tried for sex trafficking of minors, but I wish her well. I wish her well. In fact, he doubled down on that. Let's watch.
Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a person well?
I don't know that, but I do know that
she has. She's been arrested for that.
Her
you know that.
friend or boyfriend,
Epstein,
was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's now in jail. Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck. Let them prove somebody was guilty. I mean, do you know that?
Oh, so you're saying you hope she doesn't die in jail? Is that what you mean by wish her well?
Her boyfriend died in jail, and people are still trying to figure out, how did it happen? Was it suicide? Was he killed? And I do wish her well. I'm not looking for anything bad for her. I'm not looking bad for anybody. And they took that and
I mean, she's a child alleged child sex trafficking.
Big deal. But all it is her boyfriend died. He died in jail. Was he killed? Was it suicide? I do. I wish her well.
I don't wish anyone well. Yeah, that tracks with everything that we know about Trump. No, the dude is like quite adept at wishing people not well,
So
the opposite of well.
It's part of his brand.
When he doesn't like people, you're not gonna do well. So he can do that. He's choosing not to in this case. And so one can naturally wonder, why is this the person that you're wishing them luck or whatever? Like, did he say that about Cosby? Did he say that? He doesn't say that about every random criminal. He said it about this criminal.
Central Park 5.
Who he's partied with.
Central
exactly.
Park 5.
Yeah, did he wish them well?
No, he wanted them executed even when they were found innocent through DNA evidence. So, I don't know, seems like he's got a little bit of a double standard.
Like, I believe they lived in Palm Beach. Dude, you partied with them. Don't talk about where they might or might not have lived. You hung out in the same social circles with them.
It's also kind of sick that, Michael Wolff, and he's not the only one. Authors who have written about Donald Trump wait for their opportunistic moment to publish these things, these revelations. And there's something concerning about that, very deeply concerning about it. But also at the same time, would it make a difference if he had shared this with the public while Trump was still in office? I don't think it would.
No,
anyway.
And I know you have another terrible revelation.
Yes.
I mean, look, objectively, I would prefer to hear these things because even though they might not work with Trump right now, maybe with other people, they would. So as much as I might understand the profit motive, you want to have a juicy tidbit to sell your book or whatever. Yeah, I value democracy over your ability to get a cool car. So yeah, I understand they get a lot of press and everything, and obviously we need this. They have done something in acquiring the information, but we get to criticize them for holding it back when it's no longer of as immediate public interest outside of the context of an incredibly important election.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of elections, one other revelation from Michael Wolff's book is that Donald Trump really did consider calling off the 2020 general election by using martial law. And luckily he was talked out of it. This was during a debate prep session with Chris Christie. And Wolff writes that Trump said, "I'm thinking about calling it off." Christie responds, "The prep?" And Trump says, "No, the election, too much virus." So
too much virus.
He was gonna use the pandemic to declare, I'm sorry, not martial, a national security to call off, national emergency to call off the election.
Yeah, and he had sort of implied the possibility of that publicly. He had joked about it, talked about it. He clearly wasn't joking, regardless of what look he might have had on his face. Yeah, I mean, thankfully it didn't happen. He didn't have the capacity to, but he could have tried. It could have led to some sort of constitutional crisis. So thankfully we avoided that. I wonder if the reason that he didn't is not so much like a deep and abiding respect for American elections and the democratic process, and more that his excuse would be that there's too much virus and he didn't want to acknowledge that the pandemic was a serious thing.
Too much virus.
Too much virus.
There's too much virus. I've bungled this. People are saying I bungled it, calling off the election. Well, luckily he didn't.
Yeah, luckily.
But I feel like we're still living in the same dystopia, unfortunately. All right, well, we gotta take a break. There were other revelations. He thinks Nazis are great, said that Hitler did some great things. Of course he did, that's who Trump is. But we gotta take a break, so let's do that. And when we come back, we'll talk about the meth-addicted fish, specifically trout, that a study was just done on. This is an important story, folks, you don't wanna miss it. Welcome to our social break. Eclectic Miscellanea says, don't worry, the Democrats will find a way to make January 6th, the January 6th Commission, a complete another failure, regardless of whether or not the GOP participates in it. Well, look, what's the intention, right? Is it really to do a thorough investigation of what transpired that day, or is this just a political tool for them? And right now, it's really just shaping up to be a political tool, which bothers me a lot. We've got Colorado Blue Blazer Regular in our member section who says, if we had Dems with strength, they'd link every Republican with Margarine G's Nazi comments and never let go of it. I mean, that's what Republicans would do. I mean, look at what they did to Ilhan Omar. It's just, and they're gonna keep doing it, right? They're gonna accuse her of being some sort of crazy Nazi sympathizer.
They do, and as of right now, I haven't seen anything from Kevin McCarthy this time. He actually criticized her last time.
Yeah.
And it's now been normalized enough in 2 or 3 weeks that now, so far I haven't seen anything. Maybe, we'll see.
She's a fundraising machine for the Republican Party.
So what do they care?
We've got Juan O who says regarding conservatives and their nonsense about critical race theory. So didn't conservatives want to arm teachers to fend off school shooters? The same teachers that they can't trust with history lessons? Such a great point. Not My Monkey says, not my monkey, not my circus, great handle. Has any parent anywhere asked their kid, what did you do in school today? And been answered, we learned white people suck. No, I don't think that's happened. All right, and Ashes0610, thank you so much for the sweet message. Happy birthday, Anna. I hope to be half as strong as you as a woman. Anyway, I'm gonna get choked up. I hope to be half as strong of a woman you are today. You are an excellent role model and speaker. I'm so glad to have found this show because it's real and raw, no BS. You get all the cookies today, Anna. Happy birthday. Thank you.
I put that one in the doc.
You're so sweet.
It was a great one. Thank you,
so
Ashes.
Great.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it means a lot. Robert Simmons says, I live in the, this is the comment I was looking for. Yes, yes, it's in the super chat section. I'm excited. I live in the area around Seneca Lake, and I didn't even hear about this story, the Bitcoin mining story. This is why I watched TYT and became a member. Seneca Lake is a beautiful wine area too. Let's fight this and shut it down. I totally agree with you. Richard Rowe for Congress says, LOL, I was talking about the jacket off Jim Jordan reference.
That will never go away. But yes, someone explain it to us in our Slack. Thank you for that.
Eclectic in the super chat section. I'm gonna mention the super chat amount because it's obviously relevant for today. It's my birthday, so it's $7.07. Happy birthday, Anna. Thanks for being such a strong progressive voice and showing the corporate media and faux progressives what real journalism looks like. Thank you. Nice. Peter Hamby, first off, bone anniversary, Anna. Second, is Tucker Camerson applying for a pilot's license? Him watching over kids, he's learning to be a helicopter dad. My guess is he's not actually concerned about what he claims to be concerned about. Again, it's just the culture war. That's what he does. All right, let's get back to the show. That song sounds like Debbie Debs. Jumpin' music, slick DJs, fog machines and laser rays. Look out weekends, cause here I come. By the way, that Debbie Debs song is one of my favorites, and you guys should look into how she got screwed over. It's like one of the more popular songs. I believe it was from the 1980s, and anyway, she's super talented. I hate that that happened to her.
Well, at least the music industry doesn't screw over their artists anymore.
Yeah. All right, well, the story I promised you all, meth, fish, what's going on? Well, there was a study, so. A new study indicates that brown trout are at the risk of meth addiction as a result of amphetamines making their way into our waterways. So this was a study that was done in the Czech Republic. Researchers from the Czech Republic took 120 juvenile brown trout that were bred in captivity and kept them in 2 different tanks, each containing 60 fish and 350 liters of water. One tank was then laced with methamphetamine to a concentration of 1 microgram per liter, a level often found in freshwater rivers in Europe and the UK. Finally, a story that's not about the United States.
Exactly.
So real good about that, although I'm sure we have similar problems here. Anyway, now some water systems in the world have been found to be poisoned with amphetamine levels 20 times higher than that. So it gives you an idea of how certain substances make their way into our waterways, obviously impacting the environment and also impacting humans, right? So the fish in the experiment stayed in their tanks for 8 weeks before they were transferred to a different drug-free aquarium. Researchers then gave the fish the choice of staying in clean water or returning to a drug-riddled tank. What they saw was a clear preference by the exposed fish for the contaminated waters as they suffered withdrawals during the first 4 days after moving to freshwater. And look, these results are pretty shocking. Every single one of the 60 fish in the meth-laden tank had signs of the drug in their brain after 8 weeks. However, this dropped to 1 in 8 after 10 days in clean water. Addicted fish were also found to be less active than trout that had never experienced the drug. So, John, let's discuss this a little bit. Yeah, especially considering amphetamines do the opposite, right? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know how it works. I haven't done it. Yeah, it's terrifying. Like when you see things like this, it makes you wonder 2 things. First is how anyone stays healthy with all of, I mean, like the portion of the water that's not meth, what is it, just a slurry of BPA's at this point? Like there's microplastics and there's so much in there. And the other is like, it's fun to be a grad student sometimes.
Oh, totally.
We're gonna get these fish messed up. Take that, have fun. Yeah. Look at them run around. Yeah, no, but it's important obviously because as you point out, while the water in the tanks is going to be dissimilar from river water in about 1 million different ways, at least in terms of the concentration, it might actually be sort of like a lesser case than you would find in a lot of areas in the Czech Republic, let alone, I don't know the numbers in America. I'm imagining there are areas that are probably quite rough in terms of that.
Yeah, and look, this study, let me just get ahead of the comments, did find a correlation with amphetamines in the water, but not necessarily causation. So this is an issue.
Well, if they found it in their brain and they controlled their environment, so they were exposed to it only through the tank they were in.
Yeah,
unless God was getting involved.
Yeah, the research, and they're very careful, right? Like, so they want to be clear on their methodology, and the research specifically draws a correlation, and I wanted to be clear on that. But yes, you're right. And so why even study this? Well, first of all, we should care about what we're doing to our environment, how we're impacting the ecosystem through our behaviors and, in this case, drug use. And by the way, amphetamines, it doesn't mean that like people are like tossing meth in freshwater rivers, right? There are amphetamines that are literally prescribed to people in the form of Adderall and stuff like that. And so the improper disposal of those substances make their way into rivers, freshwater rivers, and it has larger implications that the researchers are looking at. So one of the researchers said such unnatural attraction to one area together with documented changes in behavior could result in unexpected ecological consequences influencing whole ecosystems. The elicitation of drug addiction in wild fish could represent another example of unexpected evolutionary selection pressure for species living in urban environments, along with ecological side effects for human societal problems with aquatic ecosystems. So there's concern about like the broader impact of something like this. And so for those of you who are wondering, well, how do our waterways get polluted with drugs? The researchers obviously laid that out for people to understand. Human drug use can spill over into streams and rivers because the chemicals pass through water or wastewater systems that aren't designed to extract them. So drugs reach waterways through a variety of routes. Improper disposal, as I mentioned earlier, such as being washed down a sink or toilet, don't do that, is one way. While the drugs can also invade the habitat of fish via the urine of people taking them, which re-enters the water system despite being filtered. So
it can pass through us, like a lot of other things, but yeah, meth.
Yeah, so man, we just love to destroy things. That's what we do. That's what we do.
We're mad scientists, and the world is our lab.
Yes. All right, one final story for you all before we wrap up the main show, and make sure you check us out in the bonus episode where we're gonna talk about a rap song being repurposed for basically vaccine encouragement. You'll like it. You probably won't, but I like it. All right, let's get to our next story. The Ukrainian military has sparked some backlash after insisting that female soldiers march in high heels. So this has to do with a parade that was supposed to take place. Women from the Ukrainian armed forces will march in this parade to mark the 30th anniversary of independence from the Soviet Union on August 24th. And if some of you are wondering, like, is this real? Really? They're gonna have the female soldiers march in high heels? Well, here's a photo showing Ukrainian soldiers marching in high heels. So this led to some backlash. Several major Ukrainian lawmakers signed a joint statement criticizing the defense ministry. One person said shoes with heels are incompatible with the combat capability of soldiers, and a Prussian step on a parade in such shoes is a deliberate harm to the health of soldiers, reads the statement. So John, as someone who has strong feelings about high heels, especially members of the military donning such heels, what do you think?
I've waited years for a story of my unique interest to finally come up. Yeah, I wish I knew more about what the actual soldiers think. If there are any who, for whatever reason, like it, maybe because it's clearly more difficult to do that and it's a show of skill or whatever, then I don't want to begrudge them their thing if they're into it. But if it is totally absent any any actual consent from them, and it was just a decree from up above, and it was actually designed with animus towards the women to make them look ridiculous, which I don't find all that bizarre. I mean, look at Tucker Carlson's constant attacks against women in our military. Like, that could be an international thing. Then yeah, it's ridiculous. Guys suck. They're soldiers. They're willing to die to protect their country.
No, you answered this perfectly, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the politicians think. It doesn't matter what the higher ups at the military think. What matters is the female soldiers and what they're comfortable doing. And I feel like you get very little feedback from the soldiers themselves, and everyone else is kind of speaking for them. The officials called on the ministry to replace the high-heeled shoes, appoint a gender advisor, which could be a good idea, and carry out a survey of women in the security and defense sector to find out how they feel about working conditions. I like the framing there, including their uniforms.
That's a good idea.
So exactly. So the backlash is justified if it's followed with, hey, why don't we survey the actual soldiers and see how they feel about this, requirement for them to march in high heels.
Yeah.
The defense ministry first defended their decision. Later, they reversed it though. In response to the criticism, the defense ministry uploaded a series of pictures to Facebook of female soldiers from other armies wearing high heels. If they're doing it, why can't we? But the lawmaker's statement pointed out that while the armies of some NATO member countries issue high heels to women as part of their dress uniform, they are not worn while marching in parades. And so eventually they decided to reverse this requirement, which I'm super excited and happy about. All right, bonus episode is next. If you're not a member, become one, tyt.com/join. And you know what? We'll see you there. We're gonna have a good time.
I'll predict right here for you, Chris. I think Donald Trump will leave office before his term is up. He'll be humiliated, embarrassed, and I know him. He's not gonna wanna lose, and he's gonna run for the hills.
You got that bet all day long.
Okay, let's get after it. Now, so look, Jake has made some good predictions, and this is in good fun. I could not disagree more.
There's a little bromance between the two of them. You got that bet all day long, Janky, you. Oh, you stop. In the meantime, let's call him out on the damage.
But
I just got a Roku set. Did basically a little bit of channel surfing, and I was like, there we are.
Yeah.
There we are. And then I turned it on, and it was John and Brett on Damage Report making fun of me.
Oh no.
So you are so busted. I even took a picture of it, okay? They're talking about my predictions. I got a new prediction for you, John Idarola.
You're doing a show that's blowing the doors off everybody.
Young Turks is the largest online news network, not a big deal. We're gonna rock the boat. We're gonna be counter-establishment. We're gonna tell people the truth to the best of our abilities. We're so sick of this corruption. We're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care. Fourth day on Occupy Wall Street. Last night we launched Wolfpack. It's us pushing our ideas out there, trying to help the country in every way that we can, trying to make this place just a little bit better. Reporting from the Hillary-Bernie debate, I gotta be honest, you know what we do, we cover it for real. For us, this system isn't working. Free and fair elections.
And when he told the cops that day, when they came to drag her away, and he said, if you're gonna chain her, you're gonna chain me. If you're gonna arrest her, you're gonna arrest me.
Joseph Kyle. I do audio for the main show, The Young Turks. I also do audio for Post Game. I started in 2006. I met Cenk Uygur at the Iraq for Sale screening that was directed by Robert Greenwald. And watching that, I want to figure out a way to be part of something that's genuine and authentic.
Hey, that's Anna.
Jumping music, slick DJs, fog machines, and laser rays. Look out weekends, cause here I come. Because weekends were made for fun. Look out weekend, cause here I come. Because weekends were made for fun, fun, fun. I work hard every day. It's all work and no play. With the boss on my back, he don't give me any slack. I sit down, I daydream of how my weekend's gonna be.
Girl, I wish you would. Ice cream.
Get it started right with the music.
Okay, so I forgot that I had recited the lyrics to Debbie Deb's.
Oh, that's
Weekend.
the song.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's funny
this
because
goes back.
Yeah. You know, I would change the lyrics up a little bit. Weekends weren't originally made for fun. They had to be fought for by labor, by unions.
That's more fun than the song.
Yes, it's more accurate than the song.
Sure.
But just want to, maybe we can
yes.
rework, maybe remaster. You know how they like to remaster songs? Let's remaster it with some new lyrics.
Yeah, but I don't think they've ever taken a song and changed the lyrics. I don't think that's the thing.
Okay, fine. I guess. Okay, John. I don't know what you've got against labor. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about.
No.
What?
Let's not do that.
Let's not.
It's not up to you. Think you're in control of this? What is it? Your birthday or something? You can do whatever you want. No. We've got some plans.
I knew it.
I don't know anything about them, but I'm gonna ad lib and see if people can make good on whatever I call for. Bring in the dragons. I'm kidding, we don't have that. But we do have a few things. So the first thing is, I believe there are some people that wanted to say something to you, and I think the director can help make that happen.
Hi Anna, Julie here, reading a tweet from Dimitri Lesser, at Dimitri Lesser. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. And this person said, at Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks. Super smart, driven, heart in the right place, cares for truth and fairness, outspoken, and has a lot of fight in her. And spot on when she talks of our current lack of empathy to each other. She's an inspiration to anyone. Reading a tweet from Silver, at Rachel N. Silver. At Anna Kasparian called Tommy Lauren White Power Barbie. This means I love Anna Kasparian. From Stephanie at CodyKit727. So her tweet was actually directed towards Marianne Williamson, and she said, wow, didn't know you are a fan of TYT. I started watching TYT after the 2016 election. Love Cenk, and Anna Kasparian is my hero for giving me fire to fight back against nonsense in this world with logic and facts. Nice to see another TYT fan. From Skylar Wrights, at Skylar, hashtag TYT Live. Anna Kasparian is my #1 American hero right now. Thank you at Anna Kasparian and at Cenk Uygur for laying out the facts. Watch at the Young Turks.
Hi Anna, happy birthday. I'm gonna read out some love letters that your fans wrote for you. Here's a blurb from Ann Summers. At some point during the Obama presidency, I started watching shows and videos from YouTube and somehow stumbled with TYT's videos. Slowly but surely, I started watching more of the small videos and eventually started watching the show every day. Since then, the passion and drive that Anna shows for her work inspired me to do a big career jump, as I realized along the way I had lost my way as well. I have been a subscriber for 2, maybe 3 years by now. I have always followed politics, as I have stated before, but I don't think I ever made any sort of donation to any campaign. I'm a monthly Bernie donor, or really talk to any of my friends about voting for Bernie either. I already lean left, but it is clear that now I lean even more to the left than I did ever before. I would love to give my own shout out to Anna, that, as I stated earlier, has inspired me so much.
Hey Anna, this one is from Al Dunbar Wilkinson. Dear Salt Dragon, it seems like your life is kind of crazy right now. So as a longtime fan and an activist member, I wanted to drop you a line to say that I think you are fantastic. You and Cenk have opened my eyes in many areas of life, and I would be incredibly proud to know you. I hope my 16-year-old daughter turns out half as kick-ass as you. I love your work ethic, your journalistic ethics, and yes, your salt. I've been watching since about 2015. I remember how stoked I was to find TYT, and I've been a member since 2019. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you and your work. I look forward to watching every day, and if you ever come to New Zealand, I'd love to buy you a beer and show you around. I'm in a tiny town called Aotearoa, New Zealand, which is known for kiwis, the bird, not the fruit. Anyway, keep being yourself, i.e. awesome, and please stay at TYT forever, as I just love the chemistry you have with Cenk. Al Dunbar Wilkinson.
Oh man, my allergies are really acting up in
I
here.
know,
Like,
I know.
it's
There's
crazy.
so many plants in this room.
Yeah, a lot of dander.
Here's the thing, that looked like fun, and I, during one of the breaks, got a message from a fan who wanted to send a DM to you, but yours wasn't open, so they sent it to me to give to you. So I'm gonna read just a little bit. She said, wanted to thank her for being so incredibly strong and brave. I love that she tells it like it is and stands up for what's right, even when it seems like so many people are trying to keep her down. I honestly believe the world would be a much better place if we had more Ana Kasparians. It's important for her to know that she has people on her side and who recognize how truly amazing she is. And so that was sent by Mora just during the last break. So you have got some Sprinkles cupcakes that they got for you.
You guys, like.
Small business produced this Salt Queen bath salts for you.
Oh, they're bath salts? Even better. I thought it was actual salt. I'm like, I've got
presumably
a
could
lot
be
of
used.
salt at home.
Exactly.
But this is great. I love bath salts.
Yeah. Well, so people from TYT weren't in the video, but we do have a card for you, which is being delivered electronically. But physical cards are fun too. So that's a card for you with people who've signed it. And also, the producers wanted to get you a gift, and they thought long and hard about this, and they went through recent videos to try to understand who you are. And so they know that you like fancy whiskey, so they got you this really fancy Basil Hayden's.
Good. It's so good.
It's very fancy, because they know that you don't like that normal bullshit. You like the fancy stuff.
Thank you.
But they know that secretly you really do like the normal stuff, so just in case, they also got you a bottle of Jack.
Yes, yes.
That's fancy, but just have a little bit of that and then drink the Jack.
Oh my God, that's so crazy. These are the two that I love the most. Like,
they did their job.
You guys are amazing. Did you guys talk to Christian? I feel like someone talked to Christian.
I don't know,
it's
it's possible, but it's from the producers, yeah.
Jesus Christ, I have mascara all over my face. Thank you. It means a lot to me. It's been a really difficult few months. And I don't know,
well, you mean a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, you guys mean a lot to me.
And I think for a lot of fans, they can't imagine the show or the network without you. I can't imagine working here without you. It would suck. So thank you for being you, despite all the haters.
Sorry, these are happy tears, I swear. God, I'm so blessed to be here, and I love working here, and as difficult as this job can be, it's just the people who are here are like beyond supportive, give me space to be who I am, and I never feel like judged by anyone here. Like I never feel like I have to hold back, and it's.
You're awesome because
anyway,
you don't.
thank you, Jesus. Anyway, I'm really grateful for all of this. I didn't expect it, obviously. Got to redo my makeup for dinner tonight. But thank you to our audience and to our members and to everyone who's taken the time to send me supportive messages recently. Like, I'm beyond grateful, and I do my best to just stay positive and come and do this show, because it's not it's not about me, it's not about any of us, it's about what we're trying to accomplish here. And thank you. Like, I would be absolutely crushed if I didn't have the support I did. And John, let's talk about John Iadarola for a second. Like,
I was barely involved in any of this, just to be clear.
No, I know, but like, you're such a good friend, John. Like, you're so supportive and you're such a kind-hearted person, and what you guys see online, what you see with this show is who he is in real life. Like, he's just such a great, kind-hearted person, and like, you've been so supportive through everything, not just recently, but throughout our entire friendship, and you know.
Thank you. Well, like I say many times, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here, so.
Man, you wanna get drunk?
Let's do it, come on, let's crack that open. You can keep the Jack, I'll go for the basil.
Have you had that?
No, I don't think I have.
It's so good. It's so weird because my brother actually, like my family came over for dinner like a few weeks ago, and my brother brought this and I tried it for the first time, Basil Hayden, and I was like, this might be the only other whiskey I've tried that I like as much, if not a little bit more than Jack, but I love Jack. It's like my favorite thing to
Now
drink.
you're set for the rest of the night.
Yeah, I am, I'm good, yeah, thank you everybody. All right, I don't know what to do now. Should we talk about the
birthday.
vaccine anthem?
Yeah, sure, if you want to. Do whatever you want.
All right, let me just fix my face. Fix your face.
Thank you to both of you.
And thank you, yes, thank you to Praveen and Julie and everyone who took the time to do this. It's amazing. This is what I look like when I cry, okay? Bad, very bad. No,
it's just they'll just assume, man, she's really affected by the inability to get the entire population vaccinated.
You know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't I fix my face for like 1 minute and John can vamp? Can you vamp?
Oh, sure.
Okay, give me 1 minute.
About vaccination?
No, about anything. About anything. Talk about what happened today on your show.
On the Damage Report? Oh my God. So like, the news has been rough sometimes. Honestly.
No, there's too much smudgeness on my face. Like,
we're just not getting out of it.
We're not doing this.
No, you look great.
Okay.
You look great. Don't worry about it.
Let's, instead of doing this Vax anthem, let's talk about something else. Anything else.
Okay.
So it doesn't get clipped out on
fun
YouTube.
birthday plans. How about that?
Yeah. So I'm really excited about not working on Saturday.
And that's from now on?
No.
Oh, you're still planning that.
So starting in August, we're gonna probably move the show time for the Jacobin show I do on Saturday mornings. So I'm looking forward to that because I would like to maintain what labor unions fought for, and that was the weekend.
Yeah.
so we're gonna move the show time, but like.
That is odd that the Socialist Sites web series is on a weekend.
Yeah, but I mean,
but that's the toil.
It's not their fault. I mean, honestly, like my weekdays are so overwhelming that like that was kind of how it all started out. But we've worked something out. We'll move the time to probably at some point on Fridays. But Christian, my husband, is taking me out of town. I don't know where. It makes me a little worried because I'm like, what should I pack? And he's like, oh, just be casual, just be casual. And I'm worried that I'm gonna pack sweats. And then he's gonna be like, here's the fancy place we're going. It's a
ball.
Yeah, and I'm gonna feel all awkward and uncomfortable. No, my favorite awkward dress moment was whenever we visit his family in Florida, we don't ever do Miami stuff. Like we don't go to clubs. We don't we just hang out with his family and
Would he want to? If you did?
No, and to be fair, I'm not into clubs. But there was this one time we visited, and it was like one of the last times we visited his family before the pandemic hit. And so since I had visited so many times before and knew that we don't really get dressed up for anything when we do, I decided to like not pack anything fancy. That was the one time that his family decided like, hey, let's go hang out in Wynwood, which is like, I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been there in a while, but like it was like the quickly gentrified area that was artsy with coffee shops and bars and restaurants and all of that stuff.
Didn't we go to dinner that one time we were in Miami with his family? Was that in Wynwood? Oh, wasn't it? Okay, because that was like fancy.
That was fancy.
It was on the river or whatever.
It was on the river. That was nice.
Okay,
that was a very nice time.
I completely forgot about that. That was fun. That was a good meal.
But we go to Wynwood and we go to like some super like a hot new bar/restaurant. And the only kind of nice outfit I had was jeans.
Sounds fine.
And a flannel button-down shirt. So we go. I sit at the bar with Christian. Other members of his family start showing up, and then the Miami crew shows up, like the real Miami. And these women, I mean, LA is nothing. Like, LA is super laid back in terms of like getting dressed up for a night on the town compared to Miami. Cause like the women, they're like wearing the stilettos, the super tight dresses. They're all like insanely dolled up. And I just remember feeling like a child.
Like a lumberjack's kid?
Like super out of place. Yes, like a lumberjack's kid.
Take your daughter to lumberjacks today?
I didn't even pack makeup for that trip. I had no makeup on. I was a mess, but anyway.
I bet it was great.
I mean, I got drunk and ended up dancing anyway. Like I had a great time, but that's why I'm a little worried. I'm like, tell me where we're going. Like it's cute, it's a surprise for now, but eventually you gotta tell me because I need to pack.
Yeah, I like surprises, but do you want me to be mad at you soon?
Right.
Yes.
But I'm just looking forward to like being away. I need to get away.
How long are you away?
Just for 2 nights.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so just something different, change of environment,
I don't know, but I wonder.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
That's cool, that's cool.
Other than that, nothing. I always feel weird planning anything for my birthday, I never do. And then before I knew it, it was here. I'm 35 now, and I've been here since I was 20. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Oh my God, that's a huge chunk of your whole life.
Imagine growing up in front of a camera from 20 to 35. And yes, you grow up, like you change considerably from 20 to 35. And it sucks because there are cringe moments that I could never erase from the internet. They're just there forever.
It's like a lot of younger people's Twitter accounts early on, except your Twitter was video.
Was video, yeah. And so I started at TYT in 07. And the part of the show that I was responsible for, I mean, when I say responsible, I would do the celebrity gossip stuff on the show.
Or the absurd news alert.
The absurd news alert.
Anna with Anna.
Anna with Anna, yes. That was, okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Because you were watching TYT, you were a viewer of TYT during that era.
Yeah.
What did you think about that version of the show? Very different from what it is now.
It is. I mean, the memories are a bit vague. It was a very long time ago, but I mean, it was a mix. It was the most serious like here's what's happening politically in domestic politics. We're gonna break it down and then let's have fun. And it's just wild, wacky news, which is honestly like, it might have been a little bit more extreme because Cenk wanted early on to be a little like half shock jock, half like Keith Olbermann or whatever. Like I don't think he'd want that comparison now, but at one point, but think about like HuffPost. What was HuffPost? It's half serious political news and half absurd nonsense. Like that's what a lot of stuff was, because first of all, you don't want to be depressed constantly, so you mix it up. And then also it's just, like just mixing it up and
Yeah, and I remember back in the day when I was kind of like pushing, I was like pushing for the show to kind of change and evolve, like my hour of the show.
You did it for years.
For years.
It was a years-long battle.
It was a years-long battle, and I would like very sneakily include like a story or two that weren't like hard news, politics that would get covered in the first hour.
Social commentary.
The social, the social commentary stuff.
It became the SCS hour.
Yes.
What was the
social
second
commentaries. I don't know,
but it was social commentary hour.
Social commentary stories.
Yes, yes. So you turned it from like half absurd news alert and then some interviews to gradually creating the social commentary to gradually more and more politics. Like that would not have happened if you had not been trying to do that for literally years.
Yeah, it was a years-long project for sure.
Yes.
And I remember as I was going through that battle with a little bit of hesitation from Cenk, right? Because he was like, no, but like the fun hour, why are we gonna ruin the fun hour with like
People
serious
expect
stuff?
some fun.
Right. And I remember him telling me, look, you got it good. Like, you do the fun stuff. Like, why would you want to cover like the depressing stuff? And I was like, no, I want to be a serious person, okay? And look, I cover the stuff that I'm actually passionate about. So I find like, I feel like I found myself where I wanted to be all along. But now I kind of get what he was talking about, right? Now I'm just like, I'll look at like entertainment reporters and I'm like, oh, your life is so easy. I want to be an entertainment reporter.
I mean, and sometimes I wish like I could just like do some think tanky stuff or stuff I used to do on What the Flick. Like when it's just the politics, it's like I want to talk about Game of Thrones or whatever. So I'll find ways to sneak it in.
I feel like there was a point with Think Tank where like everything was about like penis analysis.
I mean, I didn't notice. It just happened. I don't know.
No, but it was like studies about like, oh, if it's curved this way, it actually means that you're actually.
I don't know about that in particular, but that was fun. Like, because the thing is, those are studies that are happening.
Exactly. No, there was always like a tiny bit of substance to it. Like if it was something that salacious.
That was my Twitter bio. Tiny bit of substance.
But like, look at John. Look at John now.
Yes, I like doing all sorts of stuff.
You're dominating. You're dominating with Damage Report.
But
you have a legion of dragons behind you.
That sounds awesome when you put it that way.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, nobody's one type of person.
Totally.
Okay. Sometimes I'm sure Greta watches cartoons.
So I was having a conversation with Cenk about that. About how it's important to be well-rounded, and right now especially, I feel like everything in my life is politics and work, and like I'm off balance right now. And then he's like, no, I think you're doing fine. I'm like, no. And then I gave you as an example. I'm like, John's well-rounded. Like John's a well-rounded guy. Like you have 28 hobbies.
That's true.
You're like writing books. You're doing woodworking now. What else?
You've done that.
Board games, video games,
play board games.
Whatever. Every game you could think of. You're, other stuff. I don't know. You're doing all sorts of things, which is great.
No.
You're married.
You do stuff.
Not lately, to be honest with you. Not lately.
Go home and just pull out the Wall Street Journal. You're going home and having fun and stuff.
No, I go home and I listen to podcasts, or I go home. Yeah, it's not good. Or I read a book. So that it's partly my fault. It's not like, oh, TYT's overworking me and I have no space for like freedom. Like I do. It's just like it's hard once you're in the zone. It's hard to kind of like stop and focus on other things like hobbies.
I've had to try to get better at that.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, you're doing great.
Well, but it was an effort. Like
right.
I've often told people, when I started working here, for the first 9 months that I worked, I did not take a day off. And nobody believes that. They don't believe that it's true. But I was here on the weekends every day. Maybe nobody else was here.
I believe it.
But I was here for the first 9 months. I did not take one single day off. There was one day where I didn't go to the studio, and it was because we went up to Runyon Canyon to film your intimidation video for your arm wrestling match with Misty Kingma. That was the only day that I didn't go to the studio for 9 months.
That video was fun.
That was very fun, yes.
Yeah.
And that was not a healthy work-life balance. I gained 40 pounds in those 9 months.
Dude.
Because I would get home like a wreck, so tired, and then just eat and drink, and
yeah.
I was like Bacchus.
You also would
worked a lot, I don't know.
You'd go to the grocery store during your lunch break and literally just buy a baguette.
I know,
You
well,
would just
it was
buy a
worse than that. A baguette doesn't sound so bad. It was a big French bread loaf, and I would just sit there.
You would just eat a big French,
it's
like
good.
The whole thing. Of course
so
it's good, yes.
Okay, well that's bad. You wanna know what's worse? I've told people this before. This was my drink of choice for a while. This is the worst thing you could do. I would get home super tired, and I would play video games. And as I was playing video games, I wanted to drink to cool off because my nerves were frayed because I'd spent all day editing videos of pigs being abused in like factory farms and everything. So I would go home, I was drinking Reds at the time, which is like an apple ale. I would drink half of a Reds, maybe not half, maybe a third of a Reds. And then I would fill it back up with peach schnapps.
Oh my God.
And then it's apple and it's peach.
Dude,
and
come
it
on.
helps.
Who doesn't love John? Like,
it helps.
Your sweet tooth is unmatched. I don't know anyone who has more of a sweet tooth than you.
Well, there's that kid on Netflix, but I'm gonna sue him.
What's his name?
That deer kid, Sweet Tooth.
I haven't checked that out yet.
Copyright infringement. It's a show, anyway.
Do you watch Animal Kingdom?
No.
It's a good show. Everyone check out Animal Kingdom.
Is it about just animals?
It's about crime. It's about a crime family.
Oh no.
Organized crime family.
No, I don't watch
it's a good show.
I'm looking forward to Sexy Beast though, which sounds similar.
Yeah.
But no, I have not watched that.
Anyway, I just randomly thought of that. I feel like you'd enjoy that show.
No, we've been watching Mythic Quest, which is great. If you have Apple TV, watch Mythic Quest. And Loki and Top Chef finished.
Yeah.
And they selected as Top Chef a guy that like had like Me Too stuff about him.
Oh no.
It was after they selected him, but before the show came out.
Disaster.
And he wasn't the guy I wanted them to pick anyway, but oh well.
Disaster.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Anyway.
it happens.
Yeah, TV's rough. Yeah, he'll probably be president someday.
All right. Everyone, thank you. That was fun. The birthday thing was, I mean, a lot. Thank you in the best possible way. I'm so grateful for you guys and I love you. Thank you for the support and the birthday wishes. Thank you, John. And yeah, you guys have a great night and we're gonna do this again tomorrow, as we always do. Have a good one.